admitting those in the waiting room.
Unmute before I hammer. Calling to order the Monday, March 1st, 2021 regular meeting of the 38th Council of the City of Berkeley. Ms. Mitchell, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Baker,
Here from Berkeley, Michigan.
Councilmember Blanchard,
Here from Berkeley, Michigan.
Mayor Pro Tem Dean,
Here from Berkeley, Michigan.
Councilmember Gavin,
Here, Berkeley, Michigan.
Councilmember Hennon,
Here, Berkeley, Michigan.
Councilmember Price,
Here, Berkeley, Michigan.
Mayor Turbrack.
I am also here in Berkeley, Michigan. Our first order of business this evening is the approval of tonight's agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion to approve.
Support, whatever.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Blanchard with support from Councilmember Baker. Are there any changes, corrections, or additions? Seeing no changes or corrections or additions, Ms. Mitchell, would you please call the roll on tonight's agenda?
Blanchard,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Gavin,
Yes.
Hennon,
Yes.
Price,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes. At this time, please stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. With us this evening is Pastor Rachel Dunlap.
Pause with me, please. Glorious God in heaven, I pray for each of these council members and all who are gathered on Zoom this evening. I lift up the agenda that is before them, asking for wisdom, grace, and excellence today. I pray for health and safety for those who are gathered, and I pray for those who come together with a unity in mind and body, for the bettering of this amazing community that we all live in. In your strong name, Jesus, I pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God, indivisible.
Okay, we have reached the first public comments section of our meeting. This is for public comments for items that are included on tonight's agenda. There will be another one at the end of the meeting to address issues that are not covered in tonight's agenda. Council members will not engage you in discussion, but if your concern needs to be addressed by a member of city staff or a department of the city, please email the clerk's office at clerk@berkeleymich.net or call the clerk's office at 248-658-3310. If you'd like to comment, you're at the meeting, either raise your hand in person or via Zoom. You can raise your hand there. If you have not had a chance to dial in yet, please call 1-312-626-6799. You'll be recognized by either name or number. And when you speak, please state your name and city of residence, and you will be limited to 3 minutes. After that, you will be muted.
Not seeing any at this time, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Well, while we are waiting, Ms. Mitchell, did you receive any communications to be read into the minutes for public comments?
I did, Your Honor. The first email is from Elizabeth Petry, Petry, Berkeley resident, regarding formation of the ad hoc Woodward Dream Cruise Committee. She would like to see committee membership advertised and new members' ideas represented. I received a second email from Paul Jordan, Jordan, Berkeley resident, regarding the proposed revisions to the sign ordinance relating to political signs. He seeks clarifications regarding the ordinance in relation to flying campaign signs / flags and also controlling obscenities. And that is all.
All right, thank you, Ms. Mitchell. Ms. Mathis, did anybody else pop in with a comment?
No, sir.
All right, we'll give it just another quick second. Looking at everybody on here, doesn't look like anybody wants to say anything yet. Okay, all right. Well, with that, we will close the public comment section. Again, there will be a second public comment section at the end of the meeting. And we'll move into tonight's order of business. First up is our consent agenda. Ms. Mitchell, would you please read the items on tonight's consent agenda?
1, approval of the minutes. Matter of approving the minutes of the 38th regular city council meeting on Monday, February 1st, 2021. 2, warrant. Matter of approving warrant number 1359. 3, ordinance number 0121. Matter of considering the second reading and adoption of an ordinance to amend section 138-192 projections in order to provide clarity on permitted projections into setback area on residential properties. 4, ordinance number 0221, matter of considering the second reading and adoption of an ordinance to add division 1.5 exterior appliances to chapter 138 zoning, article 3, general provisions to provide regulations on exterior appliances on residential and commercial properties. 5, ordinance number 0321, matter of considering the second reading and adoption of an ordinance to amend section 94-10 of chapter 94 signs to eliminate number of days to remove political signs following an election and to prescribe a penalty for violations. 6, proclamation P221, matter of proclaiming March 8th as International Women's Day and recognizing March 2021 as Women's History Month in the city of Berkeley. 7, proclamation number P321, matter of proclaiming March 2021 as Severe Weather Month in the city of Berkeley.
Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. Is there a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda?
Motion
So
to
moved.
approve.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Baker. Was that you, Councilmember Hennon? The yellow went away quickly, but it wasn't you. Well, guess what? You're the lucky winner anyway. Sorry. All right, I'll give it to Councilmember Price. You raised your hand. All right, Councilmember Price seconded that. Are there any corrections or additions or just discussion on tonight's consent agenda? All right. Seeing none, just like public comments, give everybody a second, see if we can get our mute button off in time. No, or okay, we're good to go. All right, Ms. Mitchell, would you please then call the roll on tonight's consent agenda?
Dean,
Yes.
Gavin,
Yes.
Hennon,
Yes.
Price,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Blanchard,
Yes.
Turbeck.
Yes. Tonight's consent agenda has passed. We now move on to our regular agenda. Ms. Mitchell, would you please read item number 1 on our regular agenda?
Presentation, matter of receiving a presentation from the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission.
All right, before we receive this presentation, Mr. Baumgarten, would you like to give us some background?
Certainly, sir. This opportunity comes to us by way of the Michigan Municipal League, who actually passed along the message that Mr. Clark and his group was looking to make presentations to city governing boards across the state. We were happy to take advantage of this opportunity. We worked with the Districting Commission to line up Mr. Douglas Clark here, who has brought along a presentation this evening. Is going to tell us a little bit about the mission and some of the items that the Independent Redistricting Commission is going to be doing for the state of Michigan.
Well, welcome, Mr. Clark. Thank you for being with us this evening, and I guess I will turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, and my name is Douglas Clark, and I serve as one of the 13 commissioners on the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Committee. And it's also known as the MICRC, and I'll probably refer to that as we go through the presentation. I currently reside in Rochester Hills. The commission itself, of the 13 of us, are spread out throughout the state. Everywhere from Detroit to Interlochen, Rochester Hills to Battle Creek. And we meet at a minimum on a weekly basis. I would like to thank Mayor Turbrack and the City Council for allowing us the opportunity to provide some public comments about the MICRC. So we can go to the next slide, please. Let me give you a little background. Up until this year, the state of Michigan always performed their redistricting through the legislature. And that became somewhat controversial during the last redistricting because of the way some of the districts were drawn or redrawn at that point in time. So there was a number of citizens that had gotten together and put together a ballot initiative. And that ballot initiative basically directed the voters and not the legislatures to take the responsibility to do the redistricting. And the redistricting happens every 10 years, and it happens after the census. They wanted it to pursue it that way because they wanted it to be nonpartisan. And one of the things they saw back in 2010 was they felt that the redistricting was done on a partisan basis through the legislature. So a ballot proposal in 2018 was presented to the residents of Michigan, and it got approved. And based on that, the state of Michigan is initiating a Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission. So the citizens will do that, and there's 13 of us on the commission, and as well as some consultants that we're in the process of hiring. So let me go on to the second point, which is talks about the 13 of us and how we got selected. So everybody in the state had the opportunity to apply to be one of the commissioners, and there was a little over 9,000, I think 9,600 applications that came into the state. And what the state did is they hired a consulting firm, and that consulting firm randomly selected and got it down to a 200 individuals. And those 200 individuals, their applications went to the state legislature, and the legislature had the opportunity to take some of those out. And there was a minimum that or a maximum that they were allowed to do, but they were looking at things such as people holding public office, and they would be excluded, and that sort of thing. And so then with the people that were left, which was a little less than 200, they were randomly selected again. And this time it was 4 Republicans that were selected, 4 Democrats that were selected, and 4 nonpartisan individuals that were selected. And those people made up the commission. So we had our first meetings in mid-September. And by the mid portion of October, we had one of the commissioners resign. And so we had to go back to the consultants, and the Secretary of State's office worked with them, and they drew another candidate. And we brought that commissioner on board, and that commissioner lasted about a week, and they resigned. And so we went through the same process again, and we've had our 13 commissioners since about the end of October. like I said, we meet on a weekly basis at a minimum, and then we also have committees, and they meet independently as well, and everything's done through the Open Meetings Act as far as any of the meetings or any of the decisions. It's all on YouTube, and anybody is welcome to view those meetings. So that's how the commission got put together. But let me talk a little bit about what the responsibilities we have for the redistricting. And basically, there's 3 redistrictings that we have to do. We have to do the districts for the U.S. Congress, and we anticipate, once we get the census results, that we're going to go from 14 to 13 districts. We don't know that yet. And we may stay at 14, and we may go to 13. Then we're going to redistrict all the Michigan House legislative districts, and we're going to redistrict the Michigan Senate districts as well. So there's 110 Michigan House districts, and I believe there's 36 Michigan State districts that we have to do. So it gets a little more complex when we get to do those. So let me talk a little bit about the rules. I'll call them rules, the requirements that the legislature has given us as far as the redistricting process itself. And it's basically 7, there are 7 requirements coming out of them, and they are in the Constitution. So let me go through them briefly, and I'll highlight the ones that I think are going to be a challenge for us. The first one is, and these are in priority. It's just not that we have to do all 7 of the requirements, but we have to do them in this order. The first one was the districts shall be of equal population as mandated by the United States Constitution. We get a little leeway. I mean, we can't go exactly to the exact numbers for each of the 14 districts or 13 districts. So we have a variance of about 1% on the congressional districts that we can vary on. On the state House and the state Senate districts, we have a variance of 5%. So we have a little more leniency on those. In addition, on the first requirement, we need to comply with the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and any other federal laws that are applicable to the voting rights. Now, that includes any lawsuits that have been brought up against the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and whatever the decisions based on those lawsuits were. So those get included as well. So it's difficult. We found it a little difficult for the commissioners to understand, because there's only 2 of them, or 2 of us that are lawyers. I'm not one of them, but there's 2 lawyers, and they're not Voting Rights Act lawyers. So we found that a little difficult, and we felt this was going to be a real challenge to us. So we're in a process through the purchasing department on a request for proposal to bring on board a Voting Rights Act attorney as a consultant to make sure that we comply with all federal laws and any of the previous judgments that have been made up against those federal laws. So we want to protect ourselves from going forward to make sure we comply to that. So that's the first requirement we got from the state. The second one is a little bit easier. The districts that we put together have got to be geographically contiguous. Okay, so for example, we can't have a district where we have half the district over in Grand Rapids and the other half over in Oakland County somewhere. They have to be contiguous. So I don't see that as something that's going to complicate the process at this point in time. And the only caveat to that is some of the islands that the state has, and those are considered part of the counties that the islands are in. And so they would not be contiguous. The third requirement we get is probably one of our biggest challenges. And the districts shall reflect the state's diverse population and communities of interest. It's that word, communities of interest, that begins to become a problem. And there's not a solid definition of a community of interest, but it's a group of people or a population within the state that share cultural or historical characteristics, religious characteristics, racial characteristics. So for example, Dearborn has a heavy Islamic population. So that would be a community of interest. I believe West Bloomfield has a heavily Jewish population, and that would be a community of interest. In the western part of the state, we have a Amish, and that's another community of interest. The problem we have is the census data does not provide us with religious data. We can get racial data out of it. We cannot get religious data out of it. And we can't get some of the other things that may be considered communities of interest, such as economic interests. So we are, as part of our program of our public meetings, and we're going to talk about those in a minute, of our public meetings, we're going to be asking the public in the state to provide us communities of interest in their specific areas. Now, we do have some data that's been put together by some of the professors at the University of Michigan and at Michigan State, and that's going to be provided to us. And that's data on communities of interest within the state. We also have the League of Women's Voters that are working in 47 counties to try to identify communities of interest. And so the whole purpose of this is that once you get a community of interest, let's say the Amish over in the western part of the state, that their votes, that they don't get split into two districts so that their votes get dissipated and their views are not shared equally. So they have to stay together as in one of the congressional districts. So that's going to be, I think, a major undertaking for us to make sure that that happens properly. Fourth thing is that the district shall not provide a disproportionate advantage to any political party. So we have to make sure that requirement's there. And we can't do that until we map out some of these districts. The fifth one is the district shall not favor or disfavor any incumbent elected official or candidate. So in our discussions, we don't even know who the candidates are or who the incumbents are in any of the districts. We just, in all our discussions, we just don't talk about that at all at this point. Districts shall reflect consideration of county, city, and township boundaries. One of the big complaints on the last redistricting was some of the cities got split into two districts, or part of a city got split into two districts. I believe Rochester Hills is one of them, where majority of it's in District 8 and the rest is in District 11. So we need to be sensitive to that. And then the last requirement we got is that the district should be reasonably compact. So those are the requirements that we get from the state to do our redistricting. And a couple of them I think are going to be a challenge for us, particularly when we get down to the Michigan House and Michigan Senate districts, which are a lot smaller than the congressional districts. So let's go to the next page, if we could. So before we draft any redistricting plan, the commission is required, again, by the Constitution to hold at least 10 public hearings throughout the state of Michigan. Now, our communications director, which we've hired, is in the process of identifying those cities where we're going to have the meetings, identifying the places, contracting for the places. And right now, we're looking at a few more than 10 of the public hearings. And then, of course, we've got to get contingency plans put together in case we have to do them over Zoom. So it's kind of unsure at this point of exactly where they're going to be, but we're in the process of deciding that, and a lot of that work's going to be done on Friday afternoon, and when those are going to be. But they would probably be in the May, June, July timeframe. Okay. One of the other challenges we've got is the census data was to be released to us from the federal government at the end of April. It's been delayed a few times, and now there's talking at the end of September. And we've got to have our work done by November 1st. So that's a huge challenge for us because we won't have the data until a month before the due date back to the legislature. So we're working on that. We're going to use old data and try to map out some scenarios and try to get a handle on things such as communities of interest and at least get those maps so we understand where they're at and get some of that type of groundwork put together ahead of time. So but again, 10 public hearings is required. And then once we draw the maps, there's, I believe, 5 more hearings for people out in the state to take a look at the maps and provide comments back on those. So let's go to the next slide, please. So these public hearings, there's a purpose for them. The first one is to inform the public about the redistricting process itself. Okay, so the people understand what that is. And then we want to share the purpose and responsibilities of the commission, like we're talking about tonight. And then third, and most important, we want to solicit information from the public about potential redistricting plans. So we're going to ask the public to provide information on communities of interest. We're going to ask them to provide maps if they want to provide maps for their area or maps for the whole state. And then we'll take those into consideration as we're doing the redistricting. So this is what's important to you as a community if you want to get involved in doing some maps and presenting them back to the commission. If you want to provide information relative to communities of interest within Berkeley. So that's the purpose of our public hearings. And we're going to, like I mentioned, we're going to do that at a minimum of 10 places throughout the state. And the big challenge is the rural areas, you know, to get those people involved. Mainly because it's going to be difficult to get them to travel 1 or 2 hours to come to a public meeting. And then secondly, internet access out in the rural areas is not as good as it is in the Oakland Township area. So we got some challenges there as well. So let's go to the last slide. Okay, so if you have questions or any ideas to increase awareness or engagement, or if you would just want to provide public comments, and we've gotten a lot of public comments about varying items. We hired an executive director. We hired an attorney to work with us, and we've hired a communications director. And even throughout that process of interviewing, which we did on an Open Meetings Act, we got public comments emailed into us of both negative and positive about some of those individuals that we interviewed. So you're welcome to do that at any point in time. Or if you have comments about redistricting or comments about communities of interest, you can do that, and you can send it by mail to redistricting@michigan.gov, or you can mail them to the post office box that's mentioned on this slide. If you want to learn more about the redistricting process, we do have a website, and it's redistrict. You can search it as Redistricting on Michigan, and it's www.michigan.gov /MICRC. All of our meetings are on YouTube. They're on Facebook as well. They're cataloged out on YouTube. You can go out and look at them if you care. Meetings are generally 3 hours. But you're welcome to do that. The agenda is pre-posted, and it's required to be pre-posted. I believe 2 weeks ahead of time. so that the public has the opportunity to listen into the meetings as well. So thank you again for the opportunity to talk. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them at this point. And if you'd like me to come back at a further date, I'd be more than happy to do that as well. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Clark, for being with us and providing the information that, as you discussed and mentioned. Redistricting has long been something that has been under a little bit more consternation, especially as it seemed to be quite partisan. Whoever was in charge at that point had the ability to kind of draw the lines to favor that. And then, of course, then 10 years later, we'd maybe have the other party. And then it just created an issue where there just was never real agreement. So having a citizen committee certainly makes a lot of sense. And that's why at least I hope why the voters voted as they did in 2018. As you mentioned, and the only comment that I have, obviously there's a long way to go. Don't even have the data yet from the census. Won't get that quite as early as you'd hoped.
Yeah.
But it was very encouraging to see the number of opportunities for citizens to engage. Okay, both with the public meetings that you have and the meeting specifically for comments, but also just the availability of the last slide mentioned and how to contact and how to send information. I think, anytime there's a change such as this, education is obviously the most important factor, making sure that residents know or citizens know how it's happening, why it's happening, and what the process is ultimately going to look like. But more importantly, the why behind it, which again was part of why it was voted for in 2018, but some folks might not be as clear on that anymore, as we've gone through a lot since 2018. It's been a busy couple of years here. So I appreciate you being with us this evening. Are there any questions for Mr. Clark, Councilmember Baker, or comments, I should say?
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. And I want to thank you, Mr. Clark, for being with us here tonight. And given the mayor's comments about the outreach to our residents and communities, thank you very much for being a part of this discussion here tonight. What else can we do as a council and as a city to help raise awareness about this important campaign, the necessity of having fair and unbiased districts being drawn that actually represent the true intentions of our state? And in general, how else can we help you in addition to providing an audience such as this, so that we can continue to help with the important progress that you and your team are making?
Well, I think the important issue is to be able to communicate, particularly what we had on the last slide, communicate that information out to the citizens in Berkeley, so that they know that they can send in maps if they want. They can send in comments if they want. They can actually come to our meetings and speak if they get themselves on the agenda, if they prefer to do that. The big challenge for us is getting the word out to the people, and we from a centralized standpoint, it's very difficult to do. I think you have to decentralize it and bring it out to the communities and allow them to do that. We are the third state to go through this, and California did it 10 years ago, and Arizona did it 10 years ago. And we've had a number of meetings with them to see what processes they used and so forth. But that's one of the areas where they struggle, particularly California, because the state's so big, in getting the word out and getting, and the second area that they struggled with was getting information on communities of interest, which the public could have really helped them on doing that. So if I think, to answer your question, if somehow, and I don't know what mechanisms you have in your community, you can get that word out that they can do these sorts of things and participate, that would be great. And then also get the word out once we know when and where the public meetings are going to be held, so they can attend and present their ideas there if they prefer to. So.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you, sir, very much for that. And as you mentioned, if they can get themselves on the agenda, what's the process to get themselves on the agenda? Is there no notion of a public comment for folks to share their thoughts and opinions? Must they file some kind of an agenda item ahead of time? Or is
Yeah.
it something that they could, in fact, speak in a public comment fashion where they wouldn't need to get themselves onto the agenda and they could, in fact, just express their perspectives and opinions
We've seen it,
without that formal process in place?
we've seen it two ways. One is people send in emails. And I don't feel those are as effective as when people come and talk. And they can come as in public comment section of the agenda, and they're given 2 minutes to talk. And to get on that, you need to go to the redistricting website, and then you can apply from there to get on one of the meetings to voice your opinion on a certain aspect or certain subject. So that
Oh, thank you, sir, for helping to clarify that process, just so I understand that it's not an open public's comments then, right? They have to
No.
apply ahead of time, so it's not really public comment, it's
Well,
approved
it's a
comment?
public comment, but they have to apply because we're going to restrict them to 2 minutes. Where it's going to be an open public comment is these 10 meetings we're going to have around the state. That'll be open.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And yeah, as you've heard earlier, we have 3 minutes in our council meetings, but perhaps because Berkeley's, we're only 15,000 plus residents or so. We may not need to consume as much time as you guys see at the state level. So it's interesting that we don't have a mechanism for anybody to just show up and have their opinion held, and rather they have to apply ahead of time and just cross their fingers that they have a chance to share their perspectives.
Oh, they will.
Especially given the fact that you don't think that emails are very effective in communicating. So I do appreciate the clarity in your thoughts on the process, because at the end of the day, all we need to know is what we need to do to help be constructive contributors to making the state fair. And I certainly will help advocate the messages that you've communicated here tonight, and want to thank you again for your time. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Let me make one other point. What I've observed from the 13 commissioners is we've got 13 nonpartisan commissioners. We don't have 4 Republicans, 4 Democrats, and 5 nonpartisan people. We all want it to be fair, and we've discussed that a number of times in some of the things we do. When we hired an executive director or an attorney, we looked at their political party affiliations, and we looked at how much they donated. And if we saw something excessive, it was a negative check mark against them, and we didn't hire them. We wanted somebody nonpartisan on everything, on every individual that we've hired so far, and we want to keep it that way. And there's a very good attitude with the 13 of us to make that happen.
Well, fantastic. Well, thank you for that. Certainly, I wasn't questioning the partisanship of the committee. I was just merely inquiring as to the process by which folks are able to express themselves, and it sounds like it's some kind of a first come first served basis.
If they apply to come to a meeting and talk for those 2 minutes, they will be brought in for that. Now, we've had some people apply and they don't show up too.
Of course, yeah. Circumstances are such that folks may or may not be able to attend, and I appreciate your willingness to receive and at least extend those invitations to the folks that have applied. And I would hope that this open process can continue. Again, I'm sincerely grateful for your time here tonight. This information is very important, as we all understand the nature of being able to be accurately and completely represented in the state and county and federal election process is crucial. And so again, thank you for the work that you're doing. And thank you to your commission for the approach that you're taking, and for bringing this information to us so that we can continue to help let folks know what they need to do to be involved in this as well. So again, thank you very much, sir. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve.
All right, well, thank you again, Mr. Clark, and we will continue to certainly be engaged in this process, not only as individuals in the community, but also just in making sure that residents have the information, know where to get the information, and making sure that everybody understands this critically important role that the group is undertaking for our state. So thank you again, Mr. Clark.
Okay, thank you very much.
We will now move on to item number 2, please, Ms. Mitchell.
Motion number M421, matter of receiving and filing the Berkeley Public Library Annual Report for fiscal year 2019-2020.
Is there a motion to approve M421?
So moved.
Support.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Price with support from Councilmember Baker. Mr. Baumgarten, do you have an intro before we hand it over to our illustrious director?
Mr. Mayor, I certainly don't mind singing Mr. Church's praises for a quick minute before he gets the opportunity to brag on the library. It's no surprise that everything had to change, and that does include library services. But I think what you're going to see here over the next couple of minutes is the very definition of the word adaptability. Matt has done a fantastic job in serving the community in any and every way that they could think to do so. And it went well beyond what would be considered to be a traditional library service. So just wanted to give him some kudos before he starts bragging on in the library here.
Good.
Well,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Church, as the city manager mentioned, I have a feeling that like many things in our community, 2020 was definitely a different year in the library. And some of the things that Mr. Baumgarten mentioned, I think our residents, if they don't already know the incredible job you did and the opportunities that you and your staff were able to extend, they're going to hear about them now. So please.
Good. Thank you. Thank you very much. Happy to be here tonight. So typically the annual report is a time to share how we've grown, how numbers have gone up. But as the city manager has said, it's a little different this year. So the annual report before you runs through 2020, June of 2020. So we've got basically a quarter of a year closed here. So I've included a summary of an annual report overview so that you can look back at the key metrics for the past 5 years, just to look at some trends there on the page. One of the most important numbers to us is total circulation. That's, I would say, our most core function, checking things out, getting materials to patron. So you can see that from 2015 to 2018, we had really great growth there. A couple thousand every year. We had a jump of over 7,000 in circulation. And it felt like this trend was just going to continue. You know, we were trending upward, things were looking great. And then COVID hit, obviously, and we all went home for a while. So the middle of March, almost a year ago, is when the library served its last person in person. And then we closed down. We got staff back to the building in the middle of June and started curbside service and local delivery as well at the end of June. And that's when this annual report ends. So this really is about a quarter of a year closed. But I will just kind of point out a few things here. You can see that we had excellent growth in downloadable circulation. So once we determined the library would be closed for a while, we didn't know exactly how long, we started dedicating more of our resources to the downloadable collection and really pushed that as our main service to folks. We increased the number of downloads for Hoopla, one of our digital download services. And then we brought on a new service called Canopy, a movie platform to download, especially documentary, artsy type movies. So we were really just trying to operate within this from home context. How can we still serve people? So digital resources was a biggie. It is worth noting that those are more costly to purchase, unfortunately. A lot of the big publishers have libraries in a tight spot here. They can charge up to $90 for a digital license, whereas if we were to buy a hardcover of the same book, it would probably be $15 with our discount. So the money spends much more quickly for the downloads. We spend it more carefully for that reason. It's worth noting that we don't collect any overdue fees on downloadable items. So kind of big picture, that could eventually have some impact on overdue fees. I don't think a big impact, but definitely worth noting. One nice thing about the digital downloads is that we don't have to handle the materials. It's a matter of pressing some buttons, and then the license is available online, and then it gets checked in or returned from the patron automatically. So some pros and cons with that model. We continue to see really good usage with our downloadable collection as we've been in this kind of uncertain time. We also shifted our programming. So while we were especially closed at the beginning, we were doing story times from home and trying to engage with the public there. We also did a senior calling project with Parks and Rec. Some council members helped out with that as well. So staff were at home making phone calls to check on Berkeley residents, just check in, see if they needed anything. None of that stuff is captured here in the numbers, but that's part of the story of how we've gotten through this. So looking ahead to the next annual report, we'll definitely see some reduced numbers as we've not been open to the public physically for a year, but we do continue to serve people through curbside pickup. So we offer that 6 days a week. We're also doing local delivery in town, dropping things off on people's front porch when they call and ask for that. We've also rolled out a few new services as well. We're circulating puzzles, so people can check out a puzzle or two and put that together at home, and then they drop it off when they're done. Especially in the winter months, that's been a nice thing to offer. We also added Wi-Fi hotspots, 3 of them for the community, so people can check those out if they happen to be traveling or if they don't have internet at home. We have an older patron who's called a few times to check out the hotspot. She doesn't have an internet connection at home, so she enjoys having one for a week, using the hotspot, and then she returns it. So we have that. And then a new resource that we added last month is Ancestry Library Edition for budding genealogists. You can do some research from home. Ancestry is now available from homes. It used to be available in the physical library building only, but ProQuest, the provider, has been granting access for home through the pandemic, which we're really grateful for, at least through the end of June, and it may be extended further. So that's my little library spiel summary. Happy to entertain any questions or give you any additional information.
Well, only one thing you left out, big jump in the Facebook likes. I mean, we're still getting likes, more likes now.
Yes.
And again, obviously, in such a virtual world, as you mentioned, with more folks consuming things digitally, it would only make sense that they should certainly like your page as well. And not only that, but all the content that you put out. And although, you know, the download circulation, as you mentioned, went up, I mean, it's roughly doubled in 2 years based on this report, which is a pretty significant jump in what you are able to offer patrons of the library. So just a couple of other things that I wanted to mention.
Thank you.
Questions for our library director from council? Councilmember Blanchard.
Well, probably can't answer the question, but I'm getting, a lot of people are asking me, when are we gonna get the library back open again so we can go to the library? We got any ideas? Or probably not yet, but.
No firm ideas yet. So we're definitely keeping an eye on the numbers. Cases are certainly lower than they were even just a few months ago. What I'd like to see is that staying low for a while. What we're trying to avoid is kind of a flip-flop of services. So some libraries have started to open, and then cases go up, and then you have to revert back to curbside. So staying the course here, trying to provide just the safe, consistent service for the staff and the public as well. So we have staff working staggered shifts in the building so we don't have too many people in. And then we'll just keep an eye on it. We have two staff members who have had both doses of the vaccine, so that's certainly encouraging. But most of the rest of us won't be eligible until probably sometime this summer.
Yeah, and I think the short and simple is when it is safe to do so, not only obviously for the employees, but also for the residents. And hopefully that is sooner rather than later. It was brought to my attention by my wife that she would like to take some credit for the increase in download circulation. She feels that she is a very strong contributor to that as well. So I'll throw that in there. Additional comments or questions for Mr. Church? Mayor Pro Tem Dean.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. I just want to commend Library Director Church and his staff for always, bringing quality programming and circulation to the city of Berkeley, and especially during the pandemic, the evidence of your adaptability is incredible. I think the city of Berkeley in general does a great job, but when I look at the library and it's really, I think one of the biggest things we've lost during the pandemic is connection. And so you've continued to provide connection for people through books, magazines, on the other periodicals, craft kits, the list goes on and on and on. And so you've really been a resource and I think an anchor in our community. So thank you for that. And I'm glad that you mentioned about making the phone calls, because that goes beyond the bounds of anybody's job description. And so when you have a group of people with a leader who believes that that's an important thing to do, your staff followed and they did it and nobody complained, and the outreach and the lives of people that you touched was far reaching. So thank you so much for that as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Councilmember Baker.
Oh, thank you, Your Honor. And I would like to echo those sentiments as well. Director Church, I want to thank you for your continued efforts to provide fantastic community services here in these incredibly difficult times. I believe, and I know I choose to believe that my fellow council members also agree that that the Berkeley Public Library provides an incredible community service. The building is essential to the work that collectively we do, and to the services that we provide to our community. And although I'd love to see some benchmark data to compare our results against neighboring communities, just to understand where we rank, I continue to celebrate the tremendous work that you and your staff have done. I'm so grateful and thankful for the innovation that you and the team have brought to our community in terms of the like the Wi-Fi access in the parking lots, and the ways in which you've continued to extend services and offerings and programming to our residents in these incredibly difficult times. And when all is said and done, when history is written, and being the liaison to historical committee, I may have a thing or two to say about that. Our Berkeley Public Library will be chronicled for its historic efforts and initiatives to engage our community and provide some degree of joy and service while we do our best to stay safe and protect one another. So thank you again, and I hope that as we hear your report next year, you'll be able to provide an update on the number of in-person patrons that we have within the facility. But until then, I want to commend you and thank you and your team for your tremendous work, and keep it up. Thank you.
Sounds good. Yes, thank you so much.
Councilmember Price.
Yes, I want to echo what so many others said. And I know this report captures some big picture things, but I also just want to speak about the interpersonal. Your staff goes out of their way to make every phone call seem so personal, being willing to ask follow-up questions, make recommendations, the book bundles that I think started with the children's books, but now extend all the way through adult, where people can go and say, these are the kinds of things that my kids like to read or that I like to read. Give me recommendations and give me a pile of books to explore. That's just, it's such a fantastic personal service that I can't imagine bigger cities and libraries being able to offer. And I am going to put you on the spot. It's okay if you can't answer the question, but I know it won't be reflected in here, but that more recently, the city has been able to track how many phone calls the library receives per week, per day. City manager or director Church, do you have those numbers? Because I'm impressed every time I hear them.
Yeah, so one nice part of the phone system is that it is tracking that data on a month to month, and I actually get that report emailed to me each month. I'm just looking to see if I can pull that up right now. Of course, I probably can't.
I should have told you I was going to ask the question.
Yeah, but I will just say in general that it has been a nice way to really put some numbers with what we feel. So, you know, at the end of a day or a particularly busy shift, we can now look back and see what the numbers actually are for that, and say this is how many phone calls we received. So typically we would keep track of the number of reference transactions. We'd have a tally sheet at each desk. And so we haven't been compiling data like that, but we'll be using the phone data to reflect how many people we're working with and how many we're serving. So the last report, so this is for February, showed almost 2,500 phone calls in the month that came in and were answered and dealt with. So it's our lifeline to folks right now. We've thankfully been able to add a few phones to different locations throughout the library so other people can pick up and help meet the demand.
It's so impressive. And the fact that each of those calls that my kids or I make, that the staff is really putting in the effort to hear our concerns and meet our needs. Just really grateful for those personal connections. So thank you to you and your staff.
Yes, yeah, thank you very much.
Any additional comments or questions for our library director? All right, we will let you get off the hot seat here, Mr. Church. Again, you know, I know that only roughly a quarter of coronavirus impact is reflected here, but I think, you know, I hope that this is going to be a trend throughout 2021 as we start to look back on, you know, what we learned. The library for a long time was kind of just thought of that, you know, building that people had to go to in order to be able to leverage a resource. And it's one thing that you've made very clear is that the library is for anybody, for everybody, no matter where you are. There are ways that you can access and use the incredible resources that we have at the library. So thank you and your team for all of the work that you've done. And we look forward. I say this every year, and you set the bar awfully high that you got to try to up it every year, but it's something that we certainly look forward to, and you do a great job. So thank you, Matt.
Good. Yes, thank you all for your support.
Ms. Mitchell, would you please call the roll on M421?
Gavin,
Yes.
Hennon,
Yes.
Price,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Blanchard,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes. Ms. Mitchell, would you please read item number 3 on tonight's agenda?
Motion number M521, matter of approving the mayor and city manager to enter into an intergovernmental agreement for lockup services between the city of Berkeley and the city of Lathrop Village. The city of Berkeley will provide lockup services for the city of Lathrop Village for $100 per prisoner. This intergovernmental agreement shall be for a term of 3 years beginning on the first day of May 2021 and ending on the 30th day of April 2024.
Is there a motion to approve M0521?
So moved.
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Councilmember Gavin with support from Councilmember Blanchard. Mr. Baumgartner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Baumgarten?
Just a quick introduction. This would be the first renewal we've had on this particular agreement. We're ending our first 3-year agreement. It's worked so well in this situation that there's nothing other than the dates being updated here. Your packet includes a memo from the director as well as a copy of the agreement itself. And Chief Kane, I believe, has joined us on the line here.
Chief, anything you would like to add?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to add that since its inception, this contract has brought in almost $15,000 in revenue to the city. It's mutually beneficial for both cities. It's worked out real well. They're a great partner, both their administration and their police officers, and that the Lathrop Village City Council approved this contract last Monday at their meeting, and we already have it signed by their mayor and city manager.
Thank you, Chief. Are there any questions for either the chief or city manager? As mentioned, this is continuing a relationship that we have in place already. Seeing no additional questions, you did a great job, Chief. Thank you. And without any further ado, Ms. Mitchell, would you please call the roll on M521?
Hennon,
Yes.
Price,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Blanchard,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Gavin,
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes. We now move on to item number 4, please.
Motion number M621, matter of authorizing Hubble, Roth, and Clark, HRC, for proposal for professional engineering services for the public safety main entrance improvement project at a cost not to exceed $22,667.75 from the building improvements account 101-310-976-000.
Is there a motion to approve M0621?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion to approve by Mayor Pro Tem Dean with support from Councilmember Blanchard. Mr. Baumgarten?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the first of 2 related items for the public safety lobby project. Those that have been in and out of our public safety lobby know that it lacks certain amenities for people with mobility restrictions. And so Chief and his group have set out to try to remedy that. We talked about this for a while back. We temporarily put this project on hold, but we're happy to move it forward now. The packet includes a memo from Chief Kane outlining sort of what some of the goals are for this project, as well as a letter of scope from HRC showing that they reviewed the prices and kind of gave a list of the individual thresholds that we'll have for this particular project. We're looking forward to potentially being able to remedy this. This will partially be funded by CDBG, but it's only a partial funding. So the vast majority of the funds for this project will come out of the city's budget.
Chief, anything you want to add on to maybe some more of the specifications on what you're looking to accomplish?
Yes, sir, Mayor. We're looking to move the airlock or vestibule outside the building, which quite honestly, in my limited knowledge, thought was a pretty simple thing to do. But after working with Dave and Adriana from HRC, there's all kinds of issues trying to retrofit an existing building. So we were, and I know this kind of goes hand in hand with the next item, the general contractor and several subcontractors, probably about 15 people total, were in the building last week, and was very impressed both with HRC's work, which deals mainly with this item, and also the next item. A lot of issues we have to address including shoring up and moving ductwork in the basement, rerouting water lines and electrical, a lot more complicated than I initially anticipated. So we are looking forward to having people be able to get into our building. I think when this came, we've talked about it before, where the doors, just the way the configuration is, we've had people literally being stuck inside the vestibule because they can't get the doors open. So we will have, there'll be dual doors. One will be assisted, the other one will be pulls. So it'll be ADA compliant, and we'll have our records count will be ADA compliant also. So quite a bit of work to do. And so far I've been very, very impressed with HRC and with Casco.
Thank you, Chief. Questions for the Chief on this project? As he mentioned, this is something that we have been looking at for quite some time, and some other things kind of hopped in line, and now it makes it's the right time to bring this back. Councilmember Hennon?
Yes, two questions. First, when do we expect this work to start and finish?
It's going to start tomorrow, pending your approval. And that's what the timeline does say. And I should have mentioned before too, Dave Sherman from HRC is on the call too. If there's anything technical, he'd be probably a better one. But we're looking towards the middle to end of July.
Okay, and then while
that'll be the completion date.
Right, and then while the work's going on, will there be any period of time where people won't be able to access the lobby, and where should they go if they do need those kind of services?
They will actually not have access to lobby. People will not have access to lobby for up to 2 months. So we are going to have a either phone or an intercom out there, either wired or wireless. We've been working with Stan, and my thought is we'll put a sign out there too. If people have access to a mobile phone, they can call us either, and we will go out to meet them, or we'll get them in another entrance.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Additional questions for the Chief or for Mr. Sherman? Councilmember Blanchard?
Thank you, Your Honor. I was just reading what we've got, and are we going to get a corrected timeline for this? I see that they've got a CPM here that was included in one of the packages. I don't know this one or the next one, but it is not anywhere near correct. Can we get a revised timeline from this on this project?
Yes, we just got it on Friday, Councilmember Blanchard. So I will make sure we get it back out. It does indicate that they're going to start tomorrow. The bulk of the work would start on May 1st. And we'll be without water that entire day while they're rerouting some wire lines, which we're prepared to deal with. So we do have an updated timeline that we just got.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Sure.
Any additional questions? There's not. Councilmember Baker?
Oh, thank you, Your Honor. And to build on prior questions, is there a chance that perhaps as we put the signage up about the lobby closure, that we could proactively provide, in addition to phone numbers, maybe like an arrow that points, go this way if you have questions, meaning if you're already here, if we were to direct them either towards the fire hall or to, some other door, so that they would know where to knock, if that was their preference. And also, I'm assuming that we will work with Tori and others in the city to have a social media presence about the degree to which and the various avenues that folks have to reach out to us in person if they were to have a need for approaching us. So, is there any additional thoughts about providing some degree of directionality in those signs, as folks, pull up in the parking lot, they've got their thing, they're ready to go, and then, oh man, what happened? And then they could, go this way or that way.
I'm sorry, to answer your second question first, yes, we will be doing quite a bit of public outreach like we did in some of the other projects we've done. The first part of your question is they're going to have to contact us. In most cases, will probably come out to them. We're not going to have a door open. We can't. So people won't be able to come in our building unless they're escorted in. So we're not going to point them to the fire hall or into any other doors because those doors will have to remain secure. So what we'll do is we'll tell them either we'll come out or we'll meet you at one of the other doors if they need to come in for an appointment or something like that.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Chief. Yeah, that certainly seems fair. I just was thinking in terms of if they were to knock on a particular door and request access, if there was some guidance as to which way should they head, so they don't walk the wrong way. Not that, getting a couple extra steps in isn't a bad thing in this day and age. So I could sure use a few extra steps these days. So, but anyway, thank you. You've helped answer my question.
Sure.
And I think a practical difficulty with that, Chief, you can certainly correct me if I'm wrong, but the various other entrances are not typically staffed by somebody all the time. So somebody may be knocking on those doors. Aside from the safety and security, there probably won't be anybody there that can hear that necessarily unless they happen to be walking through the area.
Exactly, and that's my concern is they be, we'll put some, we'll make it very clear what they need to do when they get to the building, but we'll probably end up putting signs in the other doors too, saying to go to, to the lobby, and there'll be directions there how to get in, because that would be my concern is people wandering around the building and there's really no way to get in if we're doing our job right, at least.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, if I can just add, yeah, that seems certainly very wise. Of course, given the brief, almost brief, interruption here in service, we think that maybe there'd be a way to provide for, an exception or understanding what's going on. But I think the approach that you're describing is certainly fair enough, and I understand it completely.
Thank you. Any additional questions for the chief? Mr. Sherman is here. He's just waiting for a question. Or maybe either that or he's just waiting for me to call the roll so he can move on. All right. Well, you are off the hook. Thank you, Chief. Ms. Mitchell, would you please call the roll on M0621?
Price,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Blanchard,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Gavin,
Yes.
Hennon,
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes. We now move on to item number 5, please.
Motion number M721, matter of authorizing Casco 226 East Hudson, Royal Oak, Michigan 48067, the lowest qualified bidder for professional services for entrance and lobby construction of the Berkeley Department of Public Safety building at a cost not to exceed $207,900 from the building improvements account 101-310-976-000.
Is there a motion to approve M0721?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Blanchard with support from Councilmember Price. This is a continuation of the last item in a sense. Mr. Baumgarten, anything you want to preface before we hand it back over?
Mr. Mayor, I just want to note this particular section of the packet does include the bids that were returned back to us. We did go through the route of having a closed sealed bid process. The results are noted in the memo from Chief King. That's all, sir.
Chief, anything else you want to add on this item?
Mr. Mayor, I just want to add that like the timeline on the in this package, that is also incorrect. This went out to bid quite a while ago, and the Casco agreed to hold their prices. There isn't some contingency funds in the price, and based upon our building walkthroughs yesterday, some of that will be used. So they're retrofitting the building. It won't be the great part about having HRC involved. It's not like the fire hall where the Corey Kane construction company tried to come up with a good price, and we ran over a little bit. This one, very confident that we'll have some really good quality work by a good quality construction company, and it'll really make the entrance a welcoming and place to come in.
Well, thank you, Chief. And Mr. Sherman, again, thank you for being with us this evening. Is there anything else that you want to add that maybe hasn't been covered yet before we get into questions?
No, I think Chief handled it very well. Only thing I just wanted to let you guys know is the timeline that Casco has put out there is they're going to start around May 1st and then finish up the majority of the project around the 1st of July. And then they'll have a little bit of closeout, so that will probably push us near the end of July, but we'll at least hopefully have the front lobby open, hopefully the first part of July.
Thank you. Questions? Mayor Pro Tem Dean?
Thank you, Your Honor. Just for purposes of formalization, excuse me, when I was going through the supporting document for this agenda item, it lists Oxford Merchants Park, and this isn't about the park. It's on my page 8. I just think it should reflect what we're talking about and not Oxford Merchants. My guess is there was perhaps a copy paste that went awry or something, but
It's on page 2 of the proposal.
yes, thank you. It is 2 of the proposal.
Yeah.
Yes, that was corrected as part of the addendum. That
Thank
was a
you.
copy and paste, yes.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay.
Additional questions or comments on this item? Councilmember Gavin?
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a real quick question. How much is covered by CDBG? I know our payout for CDBG is usually quite low. I'm just kind of curious what the amount is.
Can Mark or Matt help me? I think it was, is it 50,000?
We reprogrammed some money that was originally intended for sidewalks, and well, it's just under 50. It's 49,700 and change.
Oh, great. That was higher than what I expected. So, all right, thanks.
Councilmember Price?
Yes, I'm glad that we could use some of the community development block grant for this, and that this will be a more welcoming entrance, but also a more accessible and inclusive entrance, an entrance that all of our residents and community members will be able to use with ease. So thank you for making this a priority and getting it done.
And that's a good point also. A lot of work needs to be done on the outside also to get the grading in, and quite a bit of work to the landscaping in front, which quite honestly I didn't think of, and that's why again it's nice to have the experts involved.
Well, thank you, Chief, and thank you, Mr. Sherman, for being with us this evening to answer. Oh, it looks like we have one more. Councilmember Baker, sorry.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Just a clarification too, with regards to the sidewalks. Obviously, the CDBG redirection would not affect any of the residential sidewalks, a restoration program that's underway. As we know that there is work to begin to address the safety of the sidewalks in the residential streets, and what this does is reappropriate non-residential sidewalks to help fund this piece, right? So just wanted to make that clear to our residents at home that that their funds and their efforts will continue to help ensure that that our sidewalks across the neighborhoods remain safe, and at the same time that our city hall and the public safety building will remain or will soon become incredibly accessible and a beacon of light here with us from an accessibility perspective.
Yes, I wasn't sure if either if we were waiting for somebody else to jump in there. No, and that is an important point, that this is not shifting money away from that program. It's a completely different situation, and there are obviously specific uses for CDBG funds. This is certainly one of those uses. So I do appreciate that point. Okay, now seeing no additional hands raised as I quickly look at the top section. No, okay, all right. Well, thank you again, Chief, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for being with us and answering the questions. We certainly do look forward to this project being completed, and you know, for everything mentioned, but certainly for accessibility of our residents and for folks to be able to get in and out of there safely and efficiently. Ms. Mitchell, would you please call the roll on M0721?
Baker,
Yes.
Blanchard,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Gavin,
Yes.
Hennon,
Yes.
Price,
Yes.
Turbeck.
Yes. We now move on to item number 6 on tonight's agenda.
Motion number M821, matter of approving the purchase of a Toro Sandpro 3040 at a cost not to exceed $19,964.51 from Spartan Distributors at 487 West Division Street, P.O. Box 246, Sparta, Michigan 49345. Funds for this expenditure will come from account 614-950-982-000.
Is there a motion to approve M0821?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion to approve from Mayor Pro Tem Dean with support from Councilmember Gavin. Mr. Baumgarten?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick intro. This is a budgeted item. This is going to be used, put to good use by our Parks and Recreation Department. In the course of looking to purchase this item, they were able to work with a purchasing consortium that involves other local governments. And as the memo states from Director, managed to save $5,500 by working through this purchasing consortium from the MSRP. So it's kudos to Teresa and her staff on this item.
Ms. McCarlton, you are with us this evening. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about this purchase?
Sure. Thank you for having me. As the memo states, this is an item that will be used in our ball fields. It is a rather new item that we did put in our capital equipment plan 2 years ago so that we could purchase. We did see it demoed and we're really impressed with its capability. Currently for this task, we have attachments onto attachments, onto our gator that we use. And this piece of equipment actually allows us not to have to attach those types of products, and it does it all in one machine. It basically drags the infield and makes it look much more sophisticated and kind of more professional, in a professional manner that you'd see at a professional ball field. We do get praise every single year, and this is all due to our staff, our maintenance staff, of the quality of our baseball fields from people all over the state of Michigan. We obviously work closely with our community groups, moms clubs and dads clubs too, and they also do invest funds here, but really the bulk and the lion's share of this work goes to our maintenance staff. This piece of equipment will allow them to do their jobs better, and will allow them to do it more efficiently and effectively. They spend roughly 4 hours a day, sometimes more, on ball fields alone, ball field setup with the 8 that we have. And often it's more if the grass is being cut as well, in addition to maintaining the park. So we really felt when they came to us wanting to acquire this piece of equipment, I went out to the demo day and took a look at it. Our public works foreman was out there who knows equipment very well, as our maintenance leader, Joe Nazioni. We were all impressed again with what it can do. And when we did identify it, we budgeted $25,000 as the MSRP price came in, and shows that. But again, through the purchasing cooperative, we are able to get it at a significantly discounted rate than that. We've been told that once I sign the quote, if council approves this, that we can have it within 2 to 3 weeks. So we'll have it for this baseball season. Anything else? I'm happy to answer questions.
Any additional questions for our director? Councilmember Blanchard, ask her about specs, please.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Always.
I noticed that there was no attachments listed. I assume that you're buying some attachments with this. It's not, otherwise you're gonna have just a 3-wheel scooter riding around town.
No, I appreciate that. And I apologize. I did not include that. So the attachments we're getting are the manual blade, the nail drag, the basic mat system, drag mat system, the frame assembly, and then the hitch tow bar. And that is all included in that $19,000 cost.
Thank you. That's a good price then. Yeah, did a real good job.
Thank you.
Councilmember Baker?
Thank you. And I'll follow up with one of my standard questions around the notion of training and awareness. If there's anything in particular that our team needs to know about, is that included in the price so that they can use this equipment safely and productively?
We have been told that, and they did receive minimal training during the demo, but that we have been told that they will come out here and work with us again when it is delivered. The Toro supplier who I'm working with works through Spartan. It comes through Spartan, but it's a Toro piece of equipment. So yeah, so that will happen as well.
Excellent. That sounds great. Thank you.
Any additional questions? As our director mentioned, not only, we do a phenomenal job and her team and the staff do a phenomenal job in conjunction with the community groups. Aside from just looking like nice fields, another element is making sure that they are safe and being able to drag the fields appropriately and as efficiently as possible helps because you'll have fewer bad hops, rocks, and things that potentially could come up and surprise somebody. So dragging a field not only is aesthetically pleasing, but it's also pretty important for the quality of the game as well. So I thank you for presenting us this tonight and with all of the information. Seeing no additional questions, Ms. Mitchell, would you please call the roll on M0821?
Blanchard,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Gavin,
Yes.
Hennon,
Yes.
Price,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes. We now move on to item number 7.
Motion number M921, matter of authorizing the purchase and installation of new play equipment at Tot Lot Park at a cost not to exceed $85,100 from Miracle Midwest, P.O. Box 130, Holly, Michigan 48442. Funds for this expenditure will come from account 615-950-974-000.
Is there a motion to approve M0921?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion to approve by Mayor Pro Tem Dean with support from Councilmember Blanchard. Mr. Baumgarten, do you have anything before we turn it back over to Ms. McCarlton?
Just a quick process note, Mr. Mayor, the Parks and Recreation Department continues to methodically upgrade the city's parks. As you know, we're hoping to wrap up Oxford Merchants Park this year. So the department's sights turn immediately towards the next item to be tackled, which happens to be the Tot Lot. Your packet includes a memo from the director outlining sort of so much of the same, as well as the bids and the specs and images that we hope to put into action in real life. So I'd say Teresa's here to tell you more information about it for sure.
Thank you.
Ms. McCarlton?
Thank you. So this is, again, a budgeted item. It was one of our capital items that we maintained throughout this year, and we're happy to, with Tot Lot, with the play structure. The reason that we wanted to update this one as quickly as possible is we recently had a piece of a slide break that we replaced. We then had another slide that we felt best not to replace, given that we had this capital funding come. Believe it or not, just replacing slide pieces is more costly than you would think. So we did go out to bid. We received 5 qualified bids, 8 designs, because sometimes the companies will submit more than one design. And we really take a really close look at those designs. This is an all staff thing. This is not a me thing. I think more opinions is better. And we kind of look at what we have currently in terms of inventory, in terms of play, what we're maybe lacking, and what we can do for the expense that we have. We felt like Miracle's design met a lot of what we were looking for at Tot Lot. It's a Tot Lot, so you want play for smaller kids, but we do have a lot of older children that play there. So this particular piece of equipment is for 2 to 12 years old. Most play equipment is either 2 to 5, 5 to 12, or 2 to 12. So that 2 to 12 can be a little tricky because some things might be a little trickier for younger kids. One of the things that we did end up doing with this play structure that we've never done before is we had put signs at the park and asked people to give us their opinion on things they wanted to see. We got some really fantastic ideas, some that were a little beyond space and cost that we had. But we heard a couple main things. We got 5 emails, which I was happy to get any responses we could. 2 themes that came through all of the emails was people wanting to see monkey bars, and specifically straight monkey bars, very sort of like old school and straight monkey bars. So we're matching that. We're going to put them a little lower in the ground than sometimes you see them because there are smaller children there. And then people wanted to see a spin piece, which in the design, the rope piece that you see is a spin piece, but a little bit different than what you may see in some of our other parks. In addition to that, we wanted a couple musical pieces. We don't have anything on our structures currently, and that's pretty traditional. There's a rolly slide that we don't have. And then one of the things that I'm excited about that we asked for was an octagonal sitting area where kids can kind of gather. And then the shade piece is one of my favorite pieces. Tot Lot definitely lacks some shade, and that's pretty important at parks. And we did have one parent that said, whatever you want to do play-wise, but if you can do some shade. And so we're pretty excited about this one. Jeff Martinson from Miracle is on the call if you have any questions for him or myself. We did end up, after taking the bids, we removed a couple of items, particularly the play surface. We have some of that in our inventory, and then we will be acquiring more, and we want it to match what we already have there. So we did come on at the cost that you see, the $85,100. We did have $90,000 budgeted. In terms of timeline, we are looking at about an 8 to 9 week for the equipment to be sent, and then it's about 6 to 10 days. So we're looking really that second week of May for this to be open. So it'll be open all summer and fall, and we hope a lot of fun. I think the only other thing I want to clarify is when we put the signs out, I think some people thought we were redoing the whole park. It's just the big structure that's there. All the other pieces around it, except for the teeter-totter that's a little dated, will come out. That's on the, I can see Councilmember Price thinking it's on the north end, kind of, it's almost like you can't even picture it, but all the other smaller pieces will remain, and then obviously the swings around the park. So we're excited and happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you for giving us the background, and the resident input, I think, is obviously something that we strive to try to get, and being able to get that. It's one thing to have input that, we would love to be able to do, and we can't always do it. But in particular here, we were able to incorporate some of those very important elements. And that's very important in our role as serving our community. Mr. Martinson, I want to thank you for being with us this evening. I certainly like when folks who bid are able to take some time and to come. I don't necessarily have anything specific for you, but if there's anything you'd like to add regarding the design or anything that Ms. McCarlton either already spoke about or wanted to add, I appreciate you coming here, and I certainly want to respect your time. And if there's anything you'd like to add, I want you to have the opportunity.
Yeah, we greatly appreciate this opportunity. Teresa, she hit all the high points there, and this will be a fantastic addition to the park. Like she said, we are going to be working around some of the existing equipment. I was able to, work that into the revised whenever we went back to the drawing board on it, and was kind of cost saving on some of the surfacing that she has in stock. So, we'll be working with our installer on site and working with Teresa and her team there to make sure everything gets done safely, as well as, expediting it as soon as we can. But we're excited for the opportunity, and can't wait to see the kids out there safely playing, and the new addition to the park.
Well, thank you again for being with us. Now I'll turn it to questions to council members for either Ms. McCarlton or Mr. Martinson. Councilmember Price.
Yes, as a parent of young kids, I know how popular this particular playground is, how well loved, how well used, and how things break, and how it's past time for some new equipment. So I'm thrilled that this is before us this evening. I also want to speak about that need for shade. And one of the things I was most interested in this design is that enormous shade. It looked to me like it would be one that would be nearly impossible for the big kids to climb on top of. Is that safe to say, Mr. Martinson?
That is correct. It is quite high as well. So when we engineer the product and design the product, we take that into consideration. There are standards that set specific heights. We generally exceed those heights just because kids tend to do the impossible. There are little Spider-Man and women out there. So we definitely take that into consideration, not only in the designing of the individual components, but as playground designers ourselves, when we're laying out the design, we take that, into big consideration. We don't put low roofs next to stairs or something. You got to kind of think like a kid sometimes.
For sure. Well, this looked incredibly safe and equally important, fun and exciting and challenging for all different levels and abilities. So I am incredibly excited to see it in person. Thank you.
Councilmember Baker.
Oh, yes, thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to echo those compliments, Mr. Martinson, and of course, Ms. McCarlton and your team there. This was tremendous. Having lived by the tot lot for over 15 years, I've seen that location be used by generations, and it's fantastic to see this additional investment here. And I want to celebrate the work that's gone into this design. I'm certainly not intending just to cast any shade on any of this stuff for sure. I do just want to give you the opportunity, Ms. McCarlton, to comment on how this aligns with the master plan that we've recently gone through here as a community, and how this is in fact yet another extension of the tremendous work that you and the department have done to listen to the residents and to understand their needs and what their expectations are of the kinds of services that we can provide to our community, and give you a chance to comment further as you see fit with regards to the master plan and the great work that you and Mr. Martinson and others are doing here to keep moving our community forward.
I appreciate that, Steve. Thank you. I think I would want to say one of the things that we heard over and over again through the last two master plans, both in comments and in surveys, is the outdated equipment that we had at parks. It was a common theme in 2015 and then just in 2020. And so again, I'm grateful for you to give me credit, but really the council agreeing to continue to fund the plan to replace this equipment, I think cannot be understated. And that's huge. So people say that they want to see new equipment. They've also said that they want to see varying equipment. I think at a lot of our parks, we've had good structures, but they've all been primarily kind of similar. And I think diversifying that equipment is also a piece of this. And you'll see that hopefully in the next two parks that we hopefully will come back to you on both community park equipment. Already have planning in that, and then some pretty exciting stuff that we hope to do at JC Park in the coming years. So I think the diversity of equipment and then the updating of the equipment really align with the master plan for both ages and abilities. And again, I'm excited for what we have coming to move forward in that way.
That's fantastic work. Thank you again to you and the team.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments on this exciting new structure? Mayor Pro Tem Dean?
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to thank Director McCarlton and her staff for all your hard work and attention to detail. I know that not only was this part of the master plan, but you personally have been advocating for this for quite a while. I think that, I don't have young children. I'm probably overstating the obvious, but when you get further away from that, you have to really look at, okay, how does this benefit the community as a whole? And Berkeley prides itself on its parks, and we want to keep them safe and updated and accessible. And I think that this, certainly does that, and the improvements that we're making to the other parks certainly reflect that value. So thank you again for your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. And Mayor Pro Tem Dean, as you well know, whenever you do get the itch for young children, I have a myriad that I can allow you to have fun with for a little while. And that will probably make you not want to have them anymore. So that works out very well. But you do have a grandchild, so plenty of opportunities for you to do that. Seeing no additional questions or comments, Ms. Mitchell, would you please call the roll on M0921?
Dean,
Yes.
Gavin,
Yes.
Hennon,
Yes.
Price,
Yes.
Baker,
Oh, that was brilliant. Yes.
Blanchard,
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes. Ms. Mitchell, would you please read item number 8 on tonight's agenda?
Resolution number R521, matter of authorizing a resolution of the Council of the City of Berkeley, Michigan, establishing an ad hoc Woodward Dream Cruise Committee, coordinating the 2021 Cruise Fest events for the City of Berkeley.
Is there a motion to approve R0521?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Blanchard with support from Councilmember Price. Mr. Baumgarten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you know, annually, we put the ad hoc committee back together. The council by charter is not allowed to have standing committees. So this committee is recreated each and every year in advance of the Dream Cruise for the purposes of planning. As with years past, the mayor, a council member, and the city manager all are on this as non-voting members. We also have representatives from Parks and Rec, Public Safety, and Public Works. There are 2 parade coordinators listed here. And then also we have a ton of volunteers as well. We've got 5 members of service organizations and a volunteer from the Chamber of Commerce as well. So it's and a resident as well, Mr. Mark Kuhn. So it's a good cross section of the city's functions, because this is a big event for us. So there's a lot that goes into it. So it rightfully pulls in Parks and Rec, Public Safety, and Public Works, because all those departments work incredibly hard in conjunction with the volunteers to pull this event off each and every year. This will start the planning process. There will be some additional items that comes back to council for approval of the event itself, but this gets the committee going. They work all year round, but this makes them officially kicks off the planning process for this. So I know that they've started to have a couple of meetings. They're already thinking towards August and how to pull off a safe event and bring it back, since we were not able to do so last year. So Teresa, as always, will have a huge part in putting this together. And so she can answer any questions as well that council may have.
Well, outside of the one large question that I don't think can be answered at this point, are there any other questions for Ms. McCarlton as we talk about the Cruise Fest and our anniversary Cruise Fest here? Councilmember Hennon?
Yeah, I did just want to address COVID briefly. I do think it's highly probable we will be able to safely hold Cruise Fest in August, but if anything we've learned is that COVID's really unpredictable. So I just really wanted to instill in everyone involved in the committee and all of the volunteers that we're still going to have to be very careful. And since things may be in flux, we're going to have to be very flexible too. But I am looking forward. I do think there's a high likelihood we'll be in a position where we can have some sort of event safely. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Baker?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to echo those comments. I do continue to remain optimistic and hopeful that if we and the folks in our neighboring communities continue to do the right thing, stay safe, stay healthy, stay masked, stay socially distant, get your vaccines when it's your turn, then there is every opportunity for us to have a tremendous dream cruise here coming up in the fall. And so I was very happy to see this on the agenda and eagerly await their proposals. As we talked about in a prior conversation about the Holiday Lights Parade, one of the rubric that I'll be looking for is the ability to which we are able to meet or exceed the state's guidelines and recommendations and requirements actually, for outdoor gatherings. And so if and when a proposal comes before us, that will be one of the principal factors that I use, in addition to input from the business owners and residents along 12 Mile and wherever the route may take us. So with that, I wish us all the best of luck, right? It's not just the committee and the incredible work that they do, but it's all of us to do our part to stay healthy, to stay safe, and to ensure that Berkeley cares about one another and does the right thing, so that we can have tremendous things like the Cruise Fest, as mentioned here on this item, and the Art Bash and Berkeley Days, for that matter. I think that's fundamental, and I'm super optimistic and hopeful that together we can do it. So I'm very happy to see this here tonight and look forward to supporting it.
Thank you. And again, this is obviously establishing the ad hoc committee and all of the certain, the planning that goes into it. This is not any sort of guarantee at this point, but I think we are all hopefully optimistic, and we've already heard some of those comments, that if we can continue to do the things that we need to do as individuals, not only to keep ourselves safe, but those that we come into contact with, and see what the guidelines look like as we get closer. I mean, we all know what happened last year, and then we had to, unfortunately, cancel the event, and it's not like we necessarily had a ton of time. We weren't even sure at all what we were dealing with, and that was something that happened, and it was a decision that all the communities, agreed with, and we had many discussions on that. Certainly hopeful that this year we will be able to hold the event, even if it maybe isn't exactly as it was in the past. But again, that will all depend on the guidelines and what happens. But I am hopeful that we can hold some sort of event this year and celebrate the anniversary especially. So thank you, Mr. Carlton, for all of the work that you do, and the rest of the committee here outside of myself, for all the work that they do in making sure that this event happens when it is allowed to happen. Any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, Ms. Mitchell, would you please call the roll on R0521?
Gavin,
Yes.
Hennon,
Yes.
Price,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Blanchard,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes. Ms. Mitchell, when you are ready, would you please read item number 9 on tonight's agenda?
Resolution number R621, matter of extending R2020 for temporary outdoor dining, seating, and outdoor sales and service areas, and to allow temporary enclosures in the outdoor areas in response to COVID-19 closures and restrictions.
Is there a motion to approve R0621?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Baker, and I believe support from Councilmember Hennon. Mr. Baumgarten?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the first of 2 semi-related items that are coming for you this evening. As you know, and as is outlined in the memo from Director Sluto, starting back in 2020, we did relax some of the restrictions on outdoor dining. This has been popular. We've extended it to one additional time, and we're coming up to the deadline at the end of this month, at the end of March here. So preemptively would like to ask council's consideration of extending that now through September of 2021. As outlined by Director Sluto, for temporary outdoor dining area specific to Griffith, that is currently completely closed at 12 Mile. We have actually sent letters out to the residents that are directly affected by that, and got some comments back, and invited anybody who was interested to speak at tonight's meeting. So far, I would say that this has been positive. It's certainly been a boon to Berkeley Common, and I think those that have dined outdoors safely because of this have been very appreciative of it as well. I certainly put my family in that category. So we're asking for council to do is to we know its future is somewhat uncertain, but at least take the opportunity to capture the fair weather dining season and keep the outdoor allowance.
We have our Community Development Director, Ms. Luto, with us this evening. Aaron, is there anything additional you want to add in before we open it up to questions?
No, the city manager covered everything really well. I am continuing to work with the DDA and the chamber on future updates and how we can potentially make this continue beyond these resolutions for outdoor dining. But that would be coming to you separately and through the Planning Commission.
Okay, thank you. Questions for our Community Development Director on this item? Obviously, this is an item that we have looked at in the past. We are looking at extending it. Comments or questions from council members? Councilmember Hennon?
Yeah, just one comment. I did have one resident contact me thinking that this was special treatment for Berkeley Commons, which isn't the case. This is a program we're offering to any business that meets the requirements. So I just wanted to make that clear. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Blanchard, did I see your hand up?
Yeah. Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to say that I think it's important that we have this go long enough, and I think September is good because we need to keep these businesses stable so they're not having to react to everything the governor says or changes, and hopefully there's some stability into their business process and they can look forward into making some money and being successful in the city. So I think that going through September is an excellent idea, and I'm all in favor of it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Price?
Yeah, I wanted to echo that and to thank our Community Development Department for working with the Chamber and the DDA to find these ways to support our businesses during this time. Thank you.
And the DDA has been mentioned obviously a couple times, and we know our director is not with us right now. She is out on maternity leave, and that's okay. I would prefer to her not do this like she did just before she went into labor, writing emails. So they certainly have been involved and will continue to be involved in this process. Any additional questions or comments? Again, the main points have been made in the past, but this is something that we decided as a council and enacted to try to help support our businesses that obviously could not operate in the standard way during the area of a pandemic. And this is available to anybody who certainly meets the qualifications, and then there have been a number who have taken advantage of some of the opportunities here. And it is incumbent on us as leaders in the community to try to do what we can to support those in need, whether it's residents, whether it's businesses. This is obviously a time we're dealing with something that there's no playbook on how to deal with. So we are taking the steps that provide some relief to those in need. And certainly businesses have been hit incredibly hard by the fact that people couldn't just walk in, or still in some cases can't just walk in. And even when folks can come in, certainly can't have the same capacities because we want to keep everybody safe, and everything that we're doing is in the interest of safety. And I think that is what we are talking about here as well. Are there any additional questions or comments before calling the roll? Mayor Pro Tem Dean?
Thank you, Your Honor. You just made me think of something. I had a customer into the shop the other day, and before she left, she said, "Oh, I'm so glad you made it through this." And I was like, "Oh, like we haven't really made it through anything yet." I mean, we've, as business owners, we adapt, we get creative, we try and bring new things, and we're trying to keep our heads above water here, and hoping for better days ahead. And so I'm grateful that the city has offered this opportunity for Councilmember Hennon's point, to all businesses that meet the requirements. So I'm proud that Berkeley's doing that, and I certainly would support anything we can do to support our business community. Thank you.
Well, thank you for those comments, and we do have some business owners as well with us on this Zoom call this evening down in the info box, at least in my corner there. But I think it is important that it is for all businesses, and it's not over. It is the thing here. We can't say that, hey, it's over and things can go back to normal. We don't know when that is going to be. So we need to continue to make decisions that allow flexibility for our businesses to not only survive, but thrive as we move towards hopefully the end of this pandemic in the future. Seeing no additional questions or comments, Ms. Mitchell, would you please call the roll on R0621?
Hennon,
Yes.
Price,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Blanchard,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Gavin,
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes. Ms. Mitchell, would you please read the next item on our agenda? I believe is item number 10.
Resolution number R721, matter of extending R2120 for temporary signage in response to COVID-19 restrictions.
Is there a motion to approve R0721?
So
Motion to
moved.
approve.
Motion made by Councilmember Gavin with support from Councilmember Blanchard. Mr. Baumgarten?
This is likewise an extension of a policy that we've adopted in the wake of COVID. This allows for some additional signage over and above what our ordinance would normally allow. There are three main areas that are the focus of the resolution. Any signs under the orders issued by Health and Human Services will not count towards temporary sign permits. Signs placed in the public right-of-way or obstructing pedestrian, bicycle paths or sidewalks placed by any other business. And temporary signs that must meet applicable corner clearance requirements, must not impede clear, unobstructed ingress and egress requirements for all entrances and exits. So there are still restrictions in place, but this is a chance to let our businesses post appropriate signage to keep their patrons safe, as well as call additional attention to the fact that they are still open for business and still serving residents of Berkeley, but also any of those visiting our downtown area. So another portion of our strategy to help our businesses get through up to this point and beyond, with the same sunset date of September 30th is being requested.
Thank you, Mr. Baumgarten. Again, this is another continuation. Additional questions or comments on this item? I imagine many of them would be similar to the comments from the last item. Seeing a lot of heads nodding, so if everybody's not on gallery view, I'm getting heads that are nodding yes. Again, the similar a function of us trying to, and I think the last thing that Mr. Baumgarten mentioned is, at least for me, one of the most critical here, that people know that our businesses are still open, and that additional signage that says, hey, we are open to serve you, whatever the service is, we are available, and if not, additional hours and ways to contact, I think that's incredibly important right now. So thank you for making that point. And seeing no additional questions or comments, I guess we will move a little bit more quickly through this. Ms. Mitchell, would you please call the roll on R0721?
Price,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes. Technical issues.
Blanchard,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Gavin,
Yes.
Hennon,
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes. Ms. Mitchell, would you please read item number 11 on tonight's agenda?
Motion number M1021, matter of approving special land use request SU-01-21 at 3445 Robina Avenue for office use in the downtown district.
Is there a motion to approve M1021?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion to approve by Mayor Pro Tem Dean with support from Councilmember Blanchard. Mr. Baumgarten?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item comes before you via the Planning Commission, who performed their required due diligence, including a public hearing, and has made a recommendation to approve. Community Development Director Sluto has helped shepherd this process and worked with the Planning Commission. She can answer technical questions. You also have two members of Berkeley Realty Group joining us as well.
Ms. Sluto, would you like to give us a little more background?
Yes, thank you. The applicant is requesting a special land use because the property 3445 Robina, located in the downtown district, for an office use to be located on the first floor requires special land use approval. It can be located above the first floor permitted by right, but for anything on the first floor requires special land use approval. This is a single-story building, so there is no option to go above that. The Planning Commission, as City Manager mentioned, the Planning Commission held their public hearing at the February 23rd, 2021 meeting. There were a couple of members of the public that were in attendance and vocalized their support. I haven't received any follow-up emails or questions regarding this project. We do have the applicants here ready to answer any questions that you do have. So I did include the review letter in the standards of review that was submitted to the Planning Commission, as well as the applicant's application for special land use. They have also included their floor plan. So they're going to be making some interior beautification elements. They are not going to be doing any facade improvements at this time. They will be putting up some signage, and they have already submitted an application for a new sign to advertise their business. However, we have not been able to approve that application due to the fact that we needed to make sure that the use was approved before we could move forward with the sign. So I did include, as I mentioned, I did include the review letter for the Planning Commission. And it is detailed the zoning of the property, as I've already mentioned, and then the adherence to or the compatibility with the master plan. It is also compatible with the downtown master plan that's been recently adopted. So the 5 standards of review are included there. And as the city manager mentioned, the Planning Commission gave their unanimous recommendation for approval of this use at this property. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Well, thank you, Director Sluto, for giving us the background. And obviously, whenever we look at things like this, the Planning Commission first studies these issues, making sure it fits in, obviously, with the master plan, the downtown master plan, and future uses are incredibly important. And seeing, the results of your report, and anybody who watched that meeting, that the Planning Commission was, as you mentioned, unanimous in the support or recommendation, I guess, of this special land use moving forward to City Council. I know Gabe and Tony are with us as well. Before we turn it over to Council, is there anything either of you as the applicants want to add to what we heard from the City Manager or our Planning Director, Community Development Director?
Sure, I'll jump in here. First of all, thank you very much for having us this evening. And as Aaron stated, we went through the Planning Commission meeting, and it was a unanimous vote. Tony and I are very excited to be in this downtown area, and we previously had our office along Coolidge, right at Coolidge and 12 Mile. It was in the Berkeley Muse, and the opportunity came about. This property was vacant, and we thought it would be a great opportunity for Berkeley Realty, as well as the Berkeley community, to have a extremely knowledgeable residential brokerage company in the downtown district. And in addition, we also thought it would be extremely valuable to take one of the downtown vacancies, and which happened to be an old shoe repair that was vacant and hadn't been renovated in years. And we thought that it would add tremendous value to renovate the property and have someone like Berkeley Realty in the downtown district. And we're just very excited to be in the area, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to do so.
Thank you, Gabe. Tony, I know you're here. Anything you would like to add? before we open it up to council?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing real estate for the past 8 years. I'm a Berkeley resident on 1957 Harvard. I'm also born and raised in Berkeley. Grew up on Buckingham and Webster. I love Berkeley. Still live here, obviously. I love to get involved in the community as far as being downtown and being part of the local businesses. Just want to bring clients to the downtown area and bring sellers and buyers to a walkable neighborhood and to market the free parking that we have down here and the beautiful businesses that we can present.
Well, thank you for being with us this evening. Questions from members of council, either for our director or for the applicants, before I ask the real question is, are you sure you want to do this knowing who your neighbor to the north is going to be? Your direct neighbor to the north, mind you. Mayor Pro Tem Dean? Oh, that's you. Okay. Any questions in all seriousness for our applicants today? Councilmember Baker?
Oh, thank you, Your Honor. I'm not sure if I have a question in here somewhere, but maybe I have something for Director Schluto here at the end of whatever it is I'm going to say. Liaison to the DDA, certainly the ratio or percentage of retail to office to other uses is of interest to me and to the DDA in terms of providing, walkable, shoppable opportunities for both residents and visitors to come and enjoy our downtown. And I want to thank you both, you applicants, for being here today with us and for your continued support here in the city. I love that you guys are considering moving from the Muse up and over a little bit there. I think that's great, and it definitely demonstrates your commitment. So so double negative coming here. I'm not inclined to vote against this, although I have voted against this kind of proposal on Coolidge in the past, simply because, again, nothing against you guys, the notion of our retail to office to, non, kind of thing is of concern to me from a DDA perspective and from just wanting to ensure that the downtown remains as vibrant as possible with constant flow of shoppers and visitors and things like that. So again, I'm not going to vote against this, but my question perhaps for Director Schluto here, and maybe this isn't something that we can answer tonight, is I know we have a percentage that tells us what percentage of the storefronts across 12 Mile are retail versus office today. And if we were to make this, if we were to approve this use, to what extent would that change the percentage? Again, I'm not inclined to vote against this, but I just wanted us all to be aware of the shifting dynamics with, of course, with consideration to the fact that an empty storefront does nobody any good. So again, I'm not, not saying that this is a terrible idea. I just want us to be aware of what it is we would do to our downtown in terms of the availability of additional properties for additional retail use. Is there any insight that you could offer? Or is that something you or somebody could follow up with at some point down the road?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have that information with me now, but I can certainly look into it and follow up with you at a later date.
Am I allowed to comment?
Yeah, for sure. Again,
Okay.
just like I said, I'm not against this proposal. I just, because I think that what it is that you guys are offering is great. I love your story. I love what you do. I love that that you're continuing to remain a presence here in the city. And I'm strictly just looking at this from a retail versus office perspective. I do believe that inherently retail is by design intended to bring more people into the community, as opposed to an appointment basis that is doesn't have that constant opportunity for walk-ins.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm happy that you guys are here. I'm not going to vote against this. And my interest is clearly just to understand what this will do to our downtown in terms of the availability for future retail when things turn around for us. So again, please continue. Yes, thank you.
So what you've addressed is certainly valid concerns. I will say this. One, as Tony mentioned, both Tony and I are longtime. Tony's a lifelong Berkeley resident. He currently lives there now. I went to Berkeley High School. My mom is the anti-drug and alcohol director for the Tri-Community Coalition to help prevent substance abuse among the teens and community. So we're all in for Berkeley. I mean, we rebranded our real estate company, Berkeley Realty. We love the city. We want it to thrive, and certainly want the downtown area to thrive. So if you look at some of the surrounding cities, Birmingham, Royal Oak, Northville, Novi, Plymouth, I'm sure I'm missing a whole bunch of others, but they all have a real estate company to some degree in their downtown area. And I don't think that that's just, coincidence. I think having a real estate company in the downtown district helps the retail businesses succeed. Because I'll give you an example. So when we have a closing at our office at 11 o'clock, and after the closing, our clients and if the other side of the table, whether it's a seller or buyer, they're going to be hungry. They're already in the downtown area. They're going to go across the street to Berkeley Common and then go shop around and maybe buy, who knows, whatever they want. So I think there's a real value add to having a real estate company in the downtown district.
Yes.
I really,
Yeah, for sure. Thank you again, sir. And I completely agree. Again, you guys have obviously done great work in your downtown location on Coolidge. Coolidge certainly being part of the downtown as well. I think there's you'll be having your neighbors almost immediately south of you there at Robina kind of have to step up their game since they are a realty company, right there across the street from you guys. Again, my intent isn't to have any issues with the work that you're doing or your particular proposal. I'm just looking big picture across the downtown to understand. And my question was again directed more towards the director, and I'm satisfied with her response that she will provide us with this information later. And I do hope that as future proposals are brought before us, that ratio will be taken into greater consideration. Again, you guys are awesome. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for your commitments to the city. And I don't know how to say, it's like, I hope I don't need to take advantage of your services because I love living in the city as well. So I'm not looking to move, but if anyone wants to come join us here, I would certainly be happy to send them your way. But again, my question was literally simply just one of understanding the impact to our downtown, right? There's only so many storefronts, and I'm very, very happy that this proposal is to occupy one of the vacant fronts. I love the designs that you guys have done. The investment that you're proposing on the inside is great. And as you mentioned in your comments earlier, the investment that you're bringing into this location is terrific. So please understand my intentions here are simply just to understand more broadly the impact to our downtown, and that we as a council and as planning commission keep that in mind, that although those closings at 11 o'clock might bring some patrons to go across the street and get some lunch, storefronts like the one immediately to your north bring folks on a regular and ongoing basis. and they are the, along with yourselves, are the vibrant forces that keep our downtown vibrant and active. So again, my intent is simply to understand what this will do to our downtown, and know that we've taken this step, I think, too many times in the past, and I might be a bit more insistent if we see this trend continue in future considerations. So with that, thank you again both for being here. Like I said, I will not vote against this, and I do hope that you guys are tremendously successful, because again, I love what you're proposing. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I want to try to keep our focus here on the specific proposal in front of us. I think the points that Councilmember Baker has brought up are points that we need to have continued as a council and as a DDA as we look towards the future of our city. Not in particular, I don't think Councilmember Baker, his comments were supposed to be derogatory in any way towards the applicants here. That was not the case at all. It's more of a general broad conversation that we will continue to have in the future. Are there other questions from council members in regards to this specific special land use before us? Councilmember Blanchard?
Just a real quick one. You guys do residential and commercial, or just residential real estate?
Mainly, I mean, we do both, but I would say 90% of our business is residential.
Well, if you're doing commercial, help us fill up some of those empty storefronts, please.
Yes, we're on it.
Any additional questions or comments? All right, well, seeing none, thank you. Oh, I lied. Mayor Pro Tem Bean did want to get in there. Somebody always waits until I wrap up and then I have to unwind. Mayor Pro Tem Bean.
Thank you. I think that when we have an opportunity to support an existing Berkeley business, I would like to embrace that. And with respect to what's been said about diversity in our downtown, I am not discounting that at all. But I feel like we have a business that already was a viable business and they chose to move their location and to keep their business in Berkeley. I look forward to having Gabe and Tony be operational. I can't wait to see the new awning. I see a coffee maker in those plans. So I drink mine black, FYI. So I welcome you, and I hope that this is a mutually beneficial relationship. And by that, I mean to the whole city. I know that there will be some foot traffic, and I'm just happy that that space is no longer empty, and that I've seen a lot of businesses come and go there over the years. My store's been open for 17 years next month, and I've seen a lot of things come and go in that time. And so I'm grateful for what I perceive to be your commitment and stability to not only Berkeley, but to that space. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Rubin, Mr. Moreno, for being with us this evening and providing some additional context, and certainly Aaron for running down everything that the Planning Commission discussed as they came to their recommendation. Seeing no additional questions or comments, Ms. Mitchell, would you please call the roll on M1021?
Baker,
Yes.
Blanchard,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Gavin,
Yes.
Hennon,
Yes.
Price,
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes. Ms. Mitchell, would you please read item number 12, please?
Motion number M1121, matter of approving the appointments to various boards and commissions.
Is there a motion to approve M1121?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion made by Councilmember Hennon with support from Councilmember Baker. Mr. Baumgarten?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We did have a vacancy created on the tree board. That is the item coming before you this evening. I know it says various boards and commissions, but it is one this evening. We have a partial term that could we propose to be filled by Mr. Michael Lenaway. His application materials are included in the packet. Mr. Lenaway was one of over 20 applicants that we had for this position, and so it's great to see once again you asked for volunteers in Berkeley, and Berkeley comes out in droves. So we're very happy for the passionate response we had for this group. Mr. Lenaway has a fantastic background, and we think he's going to be a fantastic addition to the tree board. He would fill a partial term, which will expire, along with our usual expirations on July 1 of this year. And at that point, council will have the option of reappointing him, so should they so choose. So just one for you this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Baumgarten. As you mentioned, we have Mr. Lenaway's very qualified application in front of us, and you know, over 20 applications or 20 candidates, I should say, applicants for a vacancy on one of our boards and commissions is incredible, as you mentioned, especially, you know, in a time when the general understanding or thought out there is that people are kind of withdrawing and not maybe being as engaged. That's not the case in Berkeley. We have residents that are still committed to volunteering their time and talents in our community. And it's tough when you have to make a decision and you have so many folks in the city. It is incredibly difficult to not choose everybody. But in this particular case, we had a ton of very, very well qualified applicants. And we are going to be voting in just a few minutes on Mr. Lenaway's application here. Are there any comments or questions from members of council? Okay, seeing none, I guess all of that exposition that I said was enough to accomplish everything that everybody else wanted to say. With that being the case, I want to thank everybody again who applied, and Mr. Lenaway, hopefully in just a minute, you will be the newest member of our tree board. Ms. Mitchell, would you please call the roll on M1121?
Blanchard,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Gavin,
Yes.
Hennon,
Yes.
Price,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Herbeck.
Yes. We now move on to item number 13, please.
Motion number M1221, matter of approving the resolution for updated poverty exemption guidelines and establishing a revised application and review process.
Is there a motion to approve M1221?
So moved.
Support.
Motion made by Council Member Gavin with support from Mayor Pro Tem Dean. Mr. Baumgarten?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last year, the Michigan Legislature adopted Public Act 253. This forced some changes in our existing policies, as well as really every municipality across the state's process by which they move through and make considerations for poverty exemptions. This affects those who have incomes that don't allow them to perhaps fully fund their own tax bill. And so they come to the Board of Review and they ask for some relief from that body. There's a process in place up to this point, and now we're proposing to amend it to be consistent with the state statute here. One of the driving forces behind the legislation, as noted in Finance Director's memo, is to level the playing fields and make sure that everyone is treated equally based on income and asset levels. That was a very well put by the Finance Director in the great summary of the intent of what we're asking to do this evening. Mark Pollock and Brian Bemis, our Deputy Treasurer, have worked extensively with Oakland County Equalization. They reviewed several drafts of the resolution that has finally come before you this evening in order to make sure it is of absolute, it seeks the best support possible for those that find themselves in need of taking advantage of it. Mr. Pollock can give you some more of the finite details on that process as Treasury and Finance work more closely with the Board of Review than my office does.
Mr. Pollock?
Yes, we did have some follow-up from Councilmember Gavin and Ross, if you want to speak to some of your thoughts. Again, we're trying to be fair. COVID has wrecked a lot of people's lives, as we know. The federal threshold is extremely low for poverty, and Councilmember Gavin had thought maybe we should look at it, maybe adding some percentage to the existing federal guidelines, which we could do if council so wishes. We put in the federal guidelines. I give some credit to Attorney Sterin as well, because John joined some of our discussion. We did slightly bump the asset level because it had been in place for a number of years. But that federal level is extremely low. And if council wishes to maybe give a little more flexibility to board review by extending those levels a little bit. And again, I'll let Councilmember Gavin give his thoughts, because I thought he was very well spoken via email, and I'll let him speak and see what council's thoughts are.
I'm glad you added the caveat via email to your comments regarding how well-spoken Councilmember Gavin is. Councilmember Gavin, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Let me see if I can set the bar very low. My email cleared it, but yeah, I would like to kind of propose for discussion by council that instead of using the federal poverty guidelines like Mark was talking about, that we look at doing a city policy of 150% of the guidelines as a baseline for qualifying for the exemption. I know it's not a ton, but one, there are a lot of people struggling, certainly because of the pandemic. And I think this just could be another tool in the toolbox to assist those that do most need it right now. But secondly, and Mark again alluded to this, I do believe that the poverty levels set by the federal government for who we deem to be in poverty are astonishingly low. And so while raising our baseline won't fix all the problems, certainly, it can still kind of help more folks and acknowledge that deficiencies in these federal classifications really do exist. So that's kind of where my thoughts were on it, but it's certainly welcome a discussion by the rest of the members of council.
And if it helps,
Well, I think
I was going to say, Mayor, if it helps at all, if he took the one person poverty exemption guideline level is $12,760 in income. If we went to 150%, that would raise that to $19,140 for an individual. And we don't have a lot of people that meet the poverty guidelines in Berkeley. We do have some. The one thing they did take away was the ability to add extenuating circumstances, which does put some bias, could put bias into the decision making. By eliminating that and going to a 50% reduction for those who qualify, it allows the board of review just to kind of look at everybody using the same measurement. And just looking at it, and a two-person would raise from 17,240 to 25,860 at 150%. So as Councilmember Gavin mentioned, it's not a huge amount, but it may be enough for somebody to qualify who otherwise might not be able to. So I don't think it's a bad thought, and we certainly want to see what council feels.
I appreciate the additional context with those numbers, because they are quite low when you actually just look at them and what we're dealing with here. And we had some conversations on a previous agenda items. What can we do to help? In that case, we're talking about the business community, but we also want to obviously do what we can to help the residents. And you mentioned eliminating extenuating circumstances. Well, I'm pretty sure everybody has an extenuating circumstance right now, and that's coronavirus pandemic. So I think that's something that we can certainly take into account. But I do think it is certainly worthy of council's discussion right now. And if we want to increase that limit from 100 to 150%, as the director gave us, it's not substantial necessarily, maybe into what some people think, but it may go from possibly the few folks that we are able to offer some assistance for to maybe almost doubling that number, or at least increasing it by about 50%. Something I think certainly merits conversation. Councilmember Hennon.
Yes, this is a very good insight. I fully support this, increasing it to 150%. Yeah, the federal poverty guidelines are just insanely low. One thing that I think would be too complex to iron out tonight, but we might consider, is that as designed, I think this has a cliff that if you hit $1 over our threshold, you now lose all of the benefit. And we may want to consider maybe at a future time making it that it phases out over a certain range instead of a cliff that you just fall off of. So, thank you.
Well, I think that's in line with what the IRS does. We know that the IRS certainly has phase outs for just about everything, where you're in between here, you're a little less, and then once you reach the end of that phase out, you're out. And I don't think that is. I think that makes sense to look at here as well. It's, you know, when you run into a situation like that, you find people trying to find a way to get that other dollar, or to, you know, try to get below the need, or unfortunately you're not, and then you're out of luck. And in that case, that isn't always fair either. So I think trying to be as equitable, and going by the statement that Mr. Baumgarten read from Mr. Pollock's note to us is important that we take that into consideration here. So we've got a couple different things. I do agree that hashing out that phase out will probably be something that we'll have to do, not necessarily this evening, but that is something to consider right now. Other feedback on Councilmember Gavin's proposal to increase from 100 to 150%, just kind of get some feedback from council on that. Councilmember Baker.
Oh, thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to thank my colleague for bringing this to help drive this, and certainly to Mr. Pollock for making this, bringing this before us. You know, as I look at this, and I agree completely, this is desperately needed and a very, very good idea. The state of Michigan's minimum wage is $9.65 an hour, which roughly equates to just like pennies over 20,000 annually. And to imagine, you know, trying to do anything, substantial in terms of family enjoyment and living life on that is exceedingly difficult. So whatever we can do to help bring about any positive benefit to folks that are they're working a hard day and living the dream as best they can. I'd absolutely love to see us be able to do something like that until we get more substantial support at the federal level to make a greater difference across the board.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Dean.
Thank you. I would support this. I believe it's the compassionate thing to do. And to your point, you know, we're doing what we can for businesses. I think, you know, to extend the same, whatever we can do for residents is the right thing to do. And thank you, Councilmember Gavin, for brainstorming that idea and coming up with that and bringing it before us tonight.
Councilmember Blanchard.
Thank you, Ryan. I have a question for Mark. Mark, what did we use in the past? Did we always use the standard federal property guidelines, or do we enhance them in the past?
They do. Board does use the guidelines. The caveat before was they granted extenuating circumstances to individuals where they could grant, and before you could grant whatever percentage you wished, and now they've locked it down to it's either 100%, 50%, or 25%. Or I think I started with 100%. So we decided 50% made sense based on the exemptions that are in place. But again, the federal guidelines are definitely extremely low, and we do have some that meet them. We have some that have extenuating circumstances where they had a horrible year where maybe an illness or something kept them from earning income. So there are some that are granted, but they would still be eligible under the guidelines, even if we bumped them a bit. But yeah, in the past, we used the federal guidelines, but we had some extenuating circumstances where individuals were granted a poverty exemption of a percentage based on those extenuating circumstances. that's part of what they've removed now.
Thank you. I think this is a good idea and I support it.
Councilmember Price?
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Councilmember Gavin, for coming up with this as a tool, as another resource that we can use to support our residents who are in greatest need. I will absolutely support this. My only question was for our city attorney, Mr. Sterin. Did you see any problems or concerns with this proposal?
No, and as Director Pollock indicated, I was sort of on the on the periphery, providing some input on this, but the answer is no. I have reviewed and communicated with Mark about this, and I don't see any issues from a legal standpoint. And certainly some of these things we've been talking about are policy questions, left to the council's discretion.
Thank you.
Well, it seems as though council is in agreement on the proposal from Councilmember Gavin. Although I do see another hand up, Councilmember Baker.
Oh, thank you, Your Honor. Mostly to amend my own comments in support of what my colleagues have said earlier, and just more as an awareness that not only will I additionally support this, but I mentioned Michigan's minimum wage. For those that have worked in a tipped industry where they, they're based on, they have a small salary plus a tip, the minimum wage is $3.67. $3.67. So that's, if you do the math on that, that comes nowhere close to what we're talking about. So I think this is much needed, and not that we needed the extra information, but I thought it might be helpful for folks to just truly understand and appreciate what folks are going through out there as they work every day to bring us exceptional service at our businesses downtown. So thanks to them, and hopefully thanks to us for doing this here tonight.
As a point of process, Mr. Sterin, is there anything additionally we need to do other than change the number here?
No, just I think you can adopt the resolution as presented with that change, and that's all you need to do.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Seeing no additional questions or comments, thank you, Director Pollock and Mr. Sterin for the work that you guys did with the city manager, and Councilmember Gavin certainly for giving us all something additional, not only to consider, but anything that we can do as a council to support the folks in our community is something that we need to have serious discussion about and give great thought. So I appreciate that. And seeing no additional questions or comments, Ms. Mitchell, would you please call the roll on M1221?
Dean,
Yes.
Gavin,
Yes.
Hennon,
Yes.
Price,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Blanchard,
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes. We now move on to item number 14 on tonight's agenda.
Motion number M1321, matter of authorizing the city manager to sign the application for additional service credit purchase for Susan Redden, approving 2 years of additional service credit. This service credit purchase is allowed by the City of Berkeley Merit System of Human Resource Management, Section 1001.08, and meets all the requirements of the MERS plan document.
Is there a motion to approve M1321?
So moved.
Support.
Motion made by Councilmember Price with support from Councilmember Baker. Mr. Baumgarten?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the motion notes, this is something that has, this policy has been adopted by council in the past as part of the merit system. So these requests come before you occasionally. So this is completely allowable. Mark Pollock has moved this process through, working with Sue to make sure MERS also has all the information they need. They provided the calculation that's included in your packet. And as Mr. Pollock notes in his memo, there is actually a cost savings to the city when these items do come up based on the way that they're calculated. So It's a benefit to our employees that they, when they're able to, enjoy taking advantage of. And it's a nice incentive for our organization as well. It's good for morale. It's certainly going to work out very well for Sue, and there's a benefit to the city at large. So we're happy to have this adopted policy on hand here.
As was mentioned, this is not the first time we've seen something like this in the past, at least in the quite recent past as well. Mr. Pollack, is there anything else you would like to add?
I will just mention, Councilmember Hendon via email suggested, and it'll tie into the amendments as well, that we, since this is happening more frequently, I do put something in the budget each year when these pop up. I think it's a good idea. I really do, because I think you'll see more people take advantage of this opportunity. So it's good to have it in the budget rather than having to amend it, at least having some amount in there each year, maybe enough to cover one person. So I agree with Councilmember Hennon on that. But yeah, I think you will see more people take advantage of the opportunity and allow what's allowed, the 2-year buy additional service credit. Taking advantage of that, I think you'll see more and more of that.
As we've talked about before, selfishly for us, I hope this doesn't mean we lose one of our great folks sooner than we'd like, but in the same interest, it certainly makes great sense for the employee and also the city, as was mentioned. So are there any questions for our director? Seeing none, as was mentioned, this is something we have done and seem to be coming up more and anticipate will be coming up even more in the future, so we can take some proactive steps to prepare ourselves for that. Seeing no additional questions or comments, Ms. Mitchell, would you please call the roll on M1321?
Gavin,
Yes.
Hennon,
Yes.
Price,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Blanchard,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes. As we continue the Mark Pollack show, Ms. Mitchell, would you please read item number 15?
Motion number M1421, matter of authorizing the amendment of the 2020-2021 budget as presented.
Is there a motion to approve M1421?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Blanchard with support from Mayor Pro Tem Dean. Mr. Baumgarten?
Mr. Mayor, in order
Or do you
to
want to just go ahead?
keep the show going, I'll defer to our finance director.
All right, Mr. Pollack.
Okay, yeah, our half years don't have a ton. The ones that the one that was of the most concern, but we believe it's a temporary thing, it's not a permanent thing, is the healthcare increases. Gallagher, who does our benefit administration, believes that this is a product of COVID as well. A lot of people held off. We had a couple of really good low months, but then people started having elective procedures. More people at home are deciding to move forward with those. So, and then we did have, a couple of higher items within the healthcare. Again, Councilmember Hennon via email asked a very good question about catastrophic. How does this compare in our healthcare? How does it compare to when we had a fully insured plan? The Gallagher, again, as part of their role, gives us an idea each year where we're at, comparatively speaking, with a fully insured plan. And we're still much better than if we had a fully insured plan doing our partial self-insured. So it's working out pretty well. The other items, again, I think as things pop up, we'll see some amendment. I give credit to the directors. They try very hard to, if they have a line item that they can move it from, we'll do that likely at the end of the year. Of course, we have to be careful that we don't drop a budget line item on something and then come back the next year in the budget and say, well, I know that gets council's attention too. Why are you asking for so much more? So they're very good, very diligent about keeping up with those items. But, other than healthcare here, I don't think there's anything that's I would consider alarming as far as the amendments go. But we're still in pretty good shape with all of our funds as far as surplus and where we'll end the year.
questions for our finance director on the amendments before us? You mentioned some of the, some of the bigger ticket items. Obviously, as we're in March already, moving headlong into budget season. I anticipate this year's budget will probably be a little bit different than some in the past, even more different than last year. Are there questions on the amendments before us today? No, does not appear to be. Okay, well, thank you. Councilmember Blanchard, thank you. Gotta do something here.
Just a comment, Your Honor. I'd like to thank Mark. This seems to be very well put together, very easy to understand, and it doesn't cause a lot of questions because it's all right there. So thank you, Mark. It's a good job.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Certainly a credit to our director, and as our director mentioned, all of our directors have had to really stay on top of their budget this year with all the changes from revenue on the revenue side and the expenditure side, significant differences. So they've done a great job staying on top of them to this point, and we have a pretty comprehensive report here in front of us based on the amendments today. Seeing no additional questions, Ms. Mitchell, would you please call the roll on M1421?
Hennon,
Yes.
Price,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Blanchard,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Gavin,
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes. We now move on to our second public comment section of the evening. This is again for items that were not covered on tonight's agenda. Again, if your concern needs to be addressed by a member of city staff, please be sure to email the clerk's office at clerk@berkeleymich.net or call the clerk's office at 248-658-3310. Remember, council will not engage you in discussion, but if you'd like to comment, please raise your hand either in front of your camera or virtually in the chat. And if you'd like to call in, please dial in at 1-312-626-6799. You'll be recognized by either name or number, and when you speak, please remember that you'll be limited to 3 minutes. No, our group has dwindled a little bit today. We started out with almost a packed house here. Ms. Mitchell, anything else that's come in that you want to read into the public record?
No, sir.
Okay. Ms. Mathis, anything that we see?
No, sir.
All right. Well, seeing none, we will close the second public comments portion of the evening, and we will move into communications. Ms. Mitchell, your choice.
Council Member Price.
Councilmember Price.
Okay. Today, we begin March, the month that marks a full year of pandemic in our country and region. I want to thank the city manager, department heads, and staff who innovated and adapted in order to provide essential services to our residents and businesses, and to meet needs and challenges that we couldn't even have imagined a year ago. It's also fitting that today we recognize March as Women's History Month in the city of Berkeley. This pandemic and its disruptions to childcare, school routines, and the economy have disproportionately affected women, especially women of color. As stated in the proclamation that we all had on the consent agenda and approved tonight, we are urged to recommit to increasing our support and recognition of the contributions made by all women of our community. These include the contributions made by women who work full-time, earning 79 cents for every dollar that men make. These include contributions of unpaid and underpaid women who take care of children, the elderly, and people with disabilities in our community. These also include the contributions of trans women who are women and who face a significantly higher rate of mistreatment and violence by simply being who they are. When we recognize, support, and uplift all women, everyone in our community wins. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Price. Councilmember Blanchard.
Thank you, Your Honor. A couple of things tonight. The Berkeley American Legion is having their fish fries again. They started 2 weeks ago. They have carryout available from 5 to 8, and they have a call-in number, 248-591-9220, where you can come in and order and wait for it there. They're getting it out real fast. It's been very popular, so I hope to see a lot more people next week. Just a reminder, we just passed a severe weather month thing. It's coming, tornado season is coming. So be sure that if you need to take shelter or you hear wanting to take shelter, do take shelter. The last thing is working with the Chamber. The Chamber is actively working on the Berkeley Art Bash and the Berkeley Street Art Fest, both of which will be moved to later on in the year. The Berkeley Art Bash will be moved to September, hopefully, and the Berkeley Street Art Fest will be moved to August, if all goes well. So they're continuing to plan those events to get things back to normal in the city. So let's hope that we can pull them off. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Blanchard. Councilmember Baker.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a couple of quick updates as well. From the Downtown Development Authority perspective, our continued best wishes go out to our DDA Director, Jennifer Finney, and her family as they welcome their next generation Berkeleyites and get acclimated here to life on planet Earth. And again, to save the dates, that the Ladies' Night Out theme coming up next in April is Take Me Out to Berkeley, as some positive counter programming to opening day coming up here on April 1st and April 2nd. And for more details on that and other great events coming up, please continue to visit downtownberkeley.com. The Historical Committee has received a large collection of vintage children's books, and they're very excited to be able to display those when the museum is able to be opened up again. So fingers crossed that can happen sometime soon. The committee remains eager for more folks who are interested in Berkeley's history to join the team. No experience or prior knowledge is needed, just a friendly, positive attitude, and one that is eager to help and to learn and to share with others about our city's history and help pave the way for the future. In the technology group, a technology advisory committee met recently and spoke about the ways in which the notion of open data can be used to make Berkeley even better, to leverage information and knowledge that's available out there in new and exciting ways. And our cyber tip of the month is that when you surf the internet, don't let a pop-up pop you in the kisser. Be careful when clicking on anything that pops up if you didn't request it, and be cautious before clicking on any of those links. And finally, it was Shelby Martin who once wrote, accountability requires mindfulness, acceptance, honesty, and courage. Again, that's accountability requires mindfulness, acceptance, honesty, and courage. And shockingly, we see a terrible lack of accountability at the federal level and sadly at the state as well. So please, let's all be safe. Let's be healthy. Let's be honest, and know that any society can only proceed as far as those who seek to undermine it will let it. Here in Berkeley, of course, we are the city that cares. And so, so please care about what you do, what you say, and who you are, because we care about you. And you matter. You matter to us. You matter to me. You matter to somebody else. And take care of yourself. And please be honest and understand the world around us. Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Dean.
Thank you, Your Honor. So I have a lot on the Parks and Rec front. They're hosting a Shamrock Hunt Wednesday, March 17th, which is very fitting. You can find shamrocks in all of our parks. Senior transportation will resume the 5-day-a-week schedule that they used to have. That resumes on March 15th. Please call 248-658-3470 to schedule your appointment. Parks and Recreation asks for 48 hours advance notice, please. And if you're wondering if this transportation may be used to take you to your vaccination appointment, absolutely, yes, it can. Please feel free to utilize that. Parks and Recreation is hosting an outdoor spring fling dance on March 30th with a rain date of March 31st. This shindig will be held in the space behind the community center. Registration for a time slot for the dance opened today, and it is required, as are masks and distancing. Outdoor recreation programming will resume in April. Please check the website for those classes and registration information. The Parks and Recreation Department hopes to have information related to summer day camp registration in maybe 1 to 2 weeks. And I know that's going to make a lot of parents happy. Please check the city's website, the department Facebook page, or call the community center for more information. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hennan.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Zoning Board of Appeals met to consider allowing placement of a generator in a side yard. Because our new law concerning generator placement doesn't go into effect for another 30 days from tonight, the ZBA had to work under the existing law. They had ruled in the past that generators should be considered an accessory structure. They upheld that interpretation and then ruled to deny the variance based on that. And that ruling is consistent with what our new law would have dictated. So despite that, there's going to be another case for a side yard generator at the ZBA a week from today on March 8th. I guess folks are trying to get these requests in right under the deadline. ZBA will also be considering a lot split on Robina. Normally, lot splits are approved administratively, but this one's going to the ZBA since they're making a request for a smaller lot than zoning normally allows. Then the tree board didn't meet last month, but will be meeting also on Monday the 8th. And I just wanted to welcome our newest member, Michael Leanaway. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilmember Gavin.
Thank you, Your Honor. A couple quick updates. Planning Commission, obviously we had the special land use that came before us tonight. There is a work session tomorrow at 7 p.m. To discuss topics that were discussed at the last Master Plan Steering Committee meeting. And then there will be a regular meeting for the Planning Commission at 7 o'clock on March 23rd. For Master Plan Steering Committee, as mentioned, met and discussed, there's an upcoming community open house, as well as a survey that is now open for residents to give their feedback. If you go to berkeleymich.org, right up at the top there's a little prompt. It says Master Plan. You can click on that and watch some great videos on housing, on corridors. You can take the survey and then register also for the community open house on March 25th at 7. And then the next actual Master Plan Steering Committee meeting will be March 16th at 7 p.m. And then the Environmental Advisory Committee didn't meet last month, but will meet on March 18th, Thursday, March 18th at 6:30. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Baumgarten?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We are getting back into our regular schedule again. We'll be back to meeting every 2 weeks. So our next meeting is the 15th, followed by 2 meetings in April on the 5th and the 19th. And that'll carry us into May as well. So looking forward to getting to some more manageable agendas, so we won't load you guys up in the future. We would just merely won't have enough time in between meetings to do so. So I apologize for the length of the agenda this evening, but really great to see all the progress and momentum we were able to make this evening. So on behalf of staff, thank you for your wise guidance.
Thank you. Mr. Sterin, would you let us know if we're going to be able to meet like this again?
Well, thank you, Mayor. And that's a good segue into the first of my 2 short topics. despite my casting a very broad net of inquiries and feelers to my usually trusty sources, I am getting very little news or feedback from what's going on in Lansing in terms of whether the state legislature will be taking up extending the authorization for municipalities to hold these electronic meetings. We're meeting in the Zoom format tonight, as we have for nearly a year now, almost to the date. And as the council knows, that authorization is set to sunset and expire on the 31st of this month, which would mean that unless things change, we'll have one more meeting in this format before we would be required to go back to in-person meetings. So there was an expectation from what I hear from the folks at MML that the state legislature would take this up. However, I'm also told that there has been considerably more pushback from state legislators this time around to extend things further. So, so stay tuned. I wish I had something more certain and definite to share with you, but unfortunately I don't. And as soon as I do, I will certainly share that with the city. My second topic, totally unrelated, pertains to
Hold on,
marijuana.
Mr. Staron. One quick second, Mr. Staron. Councilmember Baker.
Oh, yes, thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to briefly suspend the rules past our 10 o'clock bedtime so that we can continue to hear Mr. Staron's second thoughts. And of course, Dan, we eagerly await your closing thoughts to bring us a restful, peaceful slumber. So thank you.
Unfortunately, you will be disappointed this evening, but is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Gavin. We need to take a quick roll call vote to suspend our rules, Ms. Mitchell.
Yes. Baker,
Yes, please.
Blanchard,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Gavin,
Yes.
Hennon,
Yes.
Price,
Yes.
Turbeck.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Staron, for stopping you as you were getting rolling up, but I was keeping an eye on the clock and I knew that was going to come, so just to keep us on track.
It's all right. It's been a long
Please
time
continue.
since we had to do that, but I will keep it quick. As I just was about to say, my second topic has to do with marijuana. And as the council is well aware, it was in November 2018 that the Michigan electorate approved and passed the Michigan Marijuana and Taxation of Marijuana Act. And shortly after that was passed, the state, through the Marijuana Regulatory Agency, did adopt a rule that for at least the first 2 years, it was only going to issue marijuana business licenses to those applicants who already had medical marijuana licensure. So if someone just wanted to get into the adult use or recreational marijuana business, they were only going to be able to do that if they already had the medical marijuana license approval. So that narrowed the field considerably, although as we know and as we have seen, people come up with creative ways and means to fulfill that criteria. The reason I bring that up now is because consistent with that state law and state rule, our local ordinance also required that is an application requirement that one would have to have that medical marijuana licensure in order to be eligible as an applicant. Well, the the Marijuana Regulatory Agency has announced that effective, I believe effective today,
That rule is no longer in effect, and they will now allow they'll allow applicants to apply for licenses for adult use marijuana, even if they do not have that medical marijuana licensure. Now, how does that affect us? Doesn't really affect us at all right now, because we have our system in place. We have a licensing process in place that, but for pending litigation, we would be moving forward with that. And we're still a judicial ruling or 2 or 3 away from getting through that litigation. But I just bring that up because as we go ahead in the future, and if we decide to reopen the field, so to speak, for additional licenses in Berkeley, the rules have changed a little bit. We may need to look at our ordinance in that regard, but I'm just mentioning that to you because the state of Michigan now is opening up the field to folks who, aside from those who have already acquired the medical marijuana license. And that's all I have this evening. Thank you, Mr. Stern, for those updates and continuing to provide us information on what is happening in Lansing and certainly how it will affect us here in the city of Berkeley. It doesn't happen very often, but my council members have covered everything that I wanted to address. So instead of going on some sort of soliloquy just to hear myself speak, I don't see a reason to do that. So thank you all for your insightful communications today, covering some very important topics, not only in the community, but also in the city and country and nation at large. And with that, at the tender hour of 10:05, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Or
Motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Dean with Councilmember Blanchard supporting. Everybody turn their microphones on. I thought I was going to get a lot of action for that, and then nobody wanted to say anything. Ms. Mitchell, would you please call the roll?
Blanchard,
yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Gavin,
Yes.
Hennon,
Yes.
Price,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes. The March 1st, 2021 meeting of the 38th Council of the City of Berkeley is adjourned.